Hello and welcome. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. This is a special meeting of the Darien Architectural Review Board to review the Plan of Conservation and Development. The members of the ARB that are with us tonight are David Humphrey, Joe Muro, Anya Janis, myself, Elizabeth Geiger, Christina Hart, Alex Lopatinsky, and Rebecca Morrison. Late joining in the meeting will be David Riley and Kate Pulselli. There's Dave Riley as we speak. So, we just got the last minute news that while you guys have all rushed here from your jobs, the consultant is not coming tonight. But with a quick breath of air, these gentlemen from Planning and Zoning have been nice enough to all attend and take notes on his behalf and share our messages. So will you guys introduce yourselves for the record?
Sure. I'm Jeremy Ginsberg, Director of Land Use in the Planning and Zoning Office.
I'm Fred Donite, the Assistant Director of the department.
You all know Hervé, of course. So thank you for having us tonight. We're here to talk about the 2026 Town Plan of Conservation and Development. The state of Connecticut requires towns to update their town plans every 10 years. So what you see on the screen and what I'm holding up is the 2016 Town Plan. I also worked on the 2006 and 1995, so this will be my fourth version of the document. And each one's a little different because they all reflect about what's going on in the community as you speak. So I've read the 1967 Town Plan, and at the time there was a lot of worry about office growth. Too many office parks being built. What are we going to do? Well, times have changed, things have changed, and now we're sitting here in 2024, 2025, 2026. Hey, what are the hot issues in town? How should we address them going forward? How should the town grow going ahead for the next 10 years? Change in Darien is gradual. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you look at things that have changed over the past 10 years, obviously the biggest ones are the town purchased Great Island, which is big. The town also purchased Highland Farm, which is a portion of the Oxridge Hunt Club, the northern portion. So those had an effect on many things, open space, green space, et cetera. And those yet to be determined how those will be fully used. Is the town growing? Yes. Commercial development is. You see that in Norotan Heights, in downtown. Fred and I just met with David Genovese a few hours ago, talked about his project. So a lot going on, but how do we want to see it going forward? So the consultant, which is Neil Desai from Hardesty and Hanover, has put together not only discussion questions, but a web page that you can go to. Hervé has it up on the screen, which links to the town plan, but also links to other information about the plan, what the commission's doing. The commission hopes to prepare a draft and have a final draft ready about this time next year. So we're in the process of reaching out to groups like yourself. As I mentioned to Liz at the start of the meeting, we've already met with Park and Rec Commission, PZ&H Committee, the RTM, Sewer Commissions in a couple weeks, Environmental Protection Commission, Commission on Aging, Harbor Master, Beautification Commission is coming up next week. So taking a cross-section of the community, there will also be larger public outreach sessions in May or June, where we may have 100 or 200 people at a big meeting to talk about where should the town go, what's the town doing that's really good, what are concerns you have. But what we'll do tonight is focus only on the ARB and those ARB related issues, and if you have other concerns, take notes, send us an email, or hold it for one of the bigger sessions that we'll have in a month or two. So it's an interactive thing over the next few months. The consultant very much wants to hear what people have to say rather than them spewing out their opinions. They're very interested in getting thoughts. So what we'll start is with the discussion questions. Of course, town plan's available on the screen. You can all go to the town website and get a copy.
So my question before,
Sure.
so we could do this like in two ways.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys came with specific points you would add. If you could go like one by one, if you guys have a point, we can start with that, or we can go through like the outline we laid, and
Sure.
we could just start with maintaining and enhancing community character. Would you guys prefer to do that, and then we pitch in ideas based on those? Okay, I think that's great.
Excuse me, what, does this require notes?
Yes,
Okay.
let's require notes. I started them, but yes, let's keep notes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Fantastic. Okay, that sounds good, Jeremy, then we'll go.
Sounds great. It's very informal, but just getting ideas out there. Hey, what are we doing good? What could we improve? Those types of things.
Okay. Well, so this is like this is all bread and butter, right? The maintaining, enhancing, the community character. So you guys can shoot off, you'll all have a copy of this, right? Everybody was nice enough to make, print a copy for us all. So, anyone want to go first and be bold? Any ideas? If you don't have any, you don't have to feel guilty about that.
So what's written here is what we wrote, or what was
It's in the
written
current.
10 years ago.
Right.
And so some of this is like, well, yes, we are considering multifamily mixed-use development. I actually, because I work in this space of mixed-use developments across the country, I was at an economic forum in Westchester, just a panel discussion, I want to say a few weeks ago, a month ago. And what I'm hearing is larger developers, and we're seeing it with the development here, bring far down the name of the development company, looking at downtowns like ours that have really good TOD opportunities and want to get into these less built up, close to New York places to develop these mixed-use developments. I feel like we need to be better at defining what we would be okay with relative to something of that scale. One little project, I think we have enough sort of parameters on, but the things we just went through in Norotan Heights, those two developments, David's development, I think, was thoughtful enough. Like we didn't have to give him direction. He knew, he came with the right stuff. But I think going forward, folks like, I know Hines is interested in looking at opportunities in downtown Darien, Excel, RXR, big New York, and Hines is a national company, but they are looking at places like ours. So there's a chance we're gonna see more of that coming to our table. So to that end, I think we need to have, what does that review look like? What are our expectations?
For large scale multi-use projects.
Yeah, mixed use.
Like a more rigorous.
More rigorous review, yeah.
And can you be specific, even more
So-
tangible, like what are
So I think, so for example, let's walk through the most recent residential opportunity.
There've been so
That's
many
one,
gems.
that's one, that one,
The Hecker one?
yes, the Hecker one.
Yeah, which is
Thornville.
a concern. Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
so that, and by the way, that developers, well-resourced, understands how to develop, had a really good architect, on their team, and landscape architect that came to present their ideas. I think if we had been more, we have more definition around character of what we are looking for, they wouldn't have had to go through multiple design reviews with us. That would have saved them money, it would have saved us time, and it would have been easier to get sort of give them direction.
Are you
So-
You're talking about,
Like-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Different parameters, like as far as architectural
Yeah,
design, like
yeah,
like a
architectural
certain
style.
pitch is supposed to be like.
I don't know how specific we need to
specific,
get,
yeah.
honestly, there's a fine line
Yeah.
of telling the developer this
How to
is
do it.
how to do it, because then you are basically kind of cupping their
Cookie cutter.
hands,
Yeah.
and it could become cookie
Yeah,
cutter,
exactly.
but also so that they're not spinning their wheels and getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the specific answer
Yeah.
is, but I think that level of,
I could cite a case study, Seaside in Florida.
yeah,
Mhm.
oh yeah,
Had a one-page document, later Dwayne Zyberg, I believe was the firm doing it.
yeah.
And it was basically a set of guidelines,
Yeah.
but they were loose. They were loose enough
Yeah.
so that they could be interpreted.
Right,
So.
I think we're missing that.
I thought a little bit about kind of this topic earlier as well. I don't know whether this is a good idea or feasible, but also, we've had enough residential type developments come through in the past few years where we could have somewhat of a library of projects that, however we term it, they were given a favorable review, or they generally meet our guidelines, and at this point, they are very style. I mean, the one that was in last month, that was the first one I can remember that came in and out in a month, but it kind of proved if you come prepared and the quality is good enough, it doesn't require multiple meetings and iterations where we need to provide a lot of commentary. I think the opposite end of the spectrum was the one that we, it started, a number of years before, but, there were obviously multiple meetings required to get to the point where we could be comfortable with it. And for something like that, yeah, either guidelines that they have as a guide before they get here, or a recognition somehow that this project is going to require more time from us, and how do we manage that?
I think a guide needs to happen. I think that there needs to be a guide with like everything from, I mean, I know it's, if you dug deep enough, they would know, like, it can only meet this amount of height and it can only do this, but like, I think if the more you spell out for these people, the better off you are, and the less time it takes for us to go through these things. Like, you can only have a certain amount of signs. You can, like, we've gone through this now several times with like Euro and then downtown, but it's like, it should just be blatantly obvious, like, this is, once you get to this point, this is what your choice is, like, you can only, but it needs, instead of digging in like multiple places to find the answers, which.
I think that's a tough exercise.
Yeah, I see the intent, but it made me think of Nantucket, where very, I mean, talk about rigorous.
Yeah.
But I think that is kind of a unique situation, and I'd be a little concerned about trying to apply a model that strict.
I don't think, like, it could be a combination, like you said, between Seaside and Nantucket, where you
Could
kind
be,
of.
like a middle ground.
A middle ground, because I think, having done a ton of work on Nantucket, it does go a lot more cookie cutter, because where.
Because you don't have options.
Right, we have a combination of the zoning regulations, which dictate bulk and mass, and then the commercial design guidelines, which the ARB worked on.
I thought there's not an emphasis on those, that that those aren't reviewed or procured enough in our conversations. Those
They get into more details on, hey, AC units should be screened, right? Right.
Yeah.
Or roofs should generally be peaked to fit into the New England
That's the kind
vibe.
of thing. I
Well,
think
that's actually the
guidelines,
danger,
but-
because the one on Parklands from last month was none of the Nantucket nor Martha's Vineyard, but actually was successful in the design. So
I think
if
also the
your, if
location.
the design
Right.
guideline is a Nantucket tunnel, then you're only gonna get Nantucket projects, and that's kind of a decision the town has to make. What is, if it's an interesting scale and character, it could be an interesting design without being necessarily traditional, but at the proper scale, like Parklands. I mean, that was remarkable that in one shot, they
Well, I,
just
for
got
one,
through.
Yeah, would welcome like some serious modern design. I
Right.
think I pitched that when Genevieve was up here, with like the office building in the background,
Yeah.
next to the highway.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
more
that
about
doesn't have to.
It's
like
design
anything
quality.
character.
It's really design quality than
It
you know,
is,
Yeah.
and that's.
quality
and
of
you
the
can-
details and.
That is exactly, and you can tell when the developers show up with a design team that gets quality versus ones that,
It's a box.
yeah,
Yeah.
that, they stuck some stuff on it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, is what you also saying, what I hear you guys saying to summarize it, is that the plan of conservation development needs a stronger hand, like a tangible relationship with our commercial guidelines. All this stuff is written on commercial guidelines. We say this very carefully without restricting design. We say good quality design, good quality materials, but then, like, we don't go as far as to say, like, don't bring us vinyl board. We don't say stuff like that, don't bring us veneer stone, but maybe it's worth us making this kind of recommendation.
We can
Yeah.
just say at this point in time, we don't want any stucco buildings.
Right, no
Right.
more.
No, like, no
No more
more.
ethos.
Yeah.
But those are things that would go in the commercial, that would go, but the plan of conservation though would say, you need to rely on the commercial guidelines more.
It does refer to the commercial guidelines, but I think
It needs a heavier,
maybe stronger, but also, is what maybe the commercial design guidelines start saying. Hey, Mediterranean style is not really our thing in New England, but flat roofs usually don't work. Stucco, maybe not. And then more modern in appropriate spots, maybe certain places downtown, but certainly along the street, maybe different style, 2 to 3 story buildings, framing the street, working with sidewalks, streetlights, benches, curbs, all that good stuff.
Can I back up for
Sure,
a second
sure.
or ask a bigger question? How much development are we really wanting to have here?
Well, you know, it's funny, that came up when I met with the Planning, Zoning, and Housing Committee, when we talked about, you know, the current zoning allows certain things, whether it's residential property or commercial property. And what we find is, at least I'm finding, a lot of commercial buildings have a useful life. And you guys have all seen some of the buildings, like, let's take, for example, the ones at the corner of Heights and Edgerton, which are now for sale. Epi Computer, I don't know if you can pull them up on the screen. They've had their useful life. Someone is going to buy them.
Yes,
It
across
is
the train
likely-
station, or the
Yeah,
train
yeah,
station.
yeah,
Okay,
so that-
yeah.
Right. It is likely that they will start from scratch.
Yeah.
So those will be redeveloped.
It's a square box.
Right, it's a square. So, yes, there will be growth. I think what we also see is a lot of development pressure from the state of Connecticut through legislation and prodding and pushing for more multifamily housing. There's also
They
a,
added so much. I mean,
I know.
so much traffic, so many people in the
Well-
schools. Has anybody looked at
well,
that?
you know, it's funny because we talked about the schools. I did give our consultant, the Board of Ed, every October 1st does a school enrollment projection study. So in my office, I have 30 of them, one every year for the past 30 years. And it, you know, it changes. What we're seeing now is an interesting dynamic. People don't move now. In the old days, people would live in Tokenique, you know, kids graduate, then they move from Tokenique somewhere else. Well, now, nobody in Darien puts their house for sale, and everyone's sitting tight.
Okay.
Something will change, that will change, but so what we're seeing is school enrollments, and it varies by school, elementary, in Darien. Now, each town's different. Norwalk is doing this, Ansonia's doing this, Darien's holding steady with school enrollment.
But it is a higher percentage than most other towns. I caught
is.
that on the 16 plan from, you know,
Right,
where like
and the reason for that is
20.
because we have larger houses,
Hmm.
right? 5, 6, 7-bedroom houses, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 square foot houses. So.
So a recommendation I would have along those lines is, I'm confused, I think there's more to the story than I understand, but why, if we're going to do mixed-use housing, if we're going to keep introducing this concept, and you're saying the state giving us pressure to where we need to constantly do housing, why aren't we doing larger upscale 4, 5-bedroom condos above these, instead of packing in 10 families and like, you know, one of those places, why don't you just pack in 2 large families?
The commission's emphasis generally has been on studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
And we have noticed a big difference between those and school enrollments from 3 bedrooms. There's only a few places in town that have 3-bedroom apartments or condos. Avalon, John Carl's building 4 3-bedrooms, I believe, and Kensett, which were the Procaccini property, which we developed about 10 years ago, into very large condos.
Yeah,
The condos that were built in the mid-'80s, Pinebrook, Sedgwick Village, Darien Close, Villager Pond, are all 1 and 2-bedroom condos. I don't think there's any 3 bedrooms. So what we have seen in those is no school kids. 5, 10, hardly
I
any.
know the other side of that though is that what we're talking about, the taxation on our resources, more like, you know, the traffic, the congestion, like, I mean, you're gonna be a sewer, the sewer commission, I mean, I don't- how are they handling all this added volume?
So what we've done, which the town plan points the commission to, is as part of any application, whether you're Avalon, whether you're John Vaccaro, whether you're David Genovese, the town looks for various improvements in roads, the environment, drainage, sidewalks. So, for example, John Vaccaro, who's just finishing up his project, still is yet to do the widening at Heights and Hollow Tree, and he's going to do some signal timing. So when you drop your kids off at Middlesex Middle School, you might be able to get there a little quicker than you do
That's
now.
good. Well,
So,
look at the bollards
Jeremy,
as well.
just to be clear, those are, how do I say, deals that you strike with the developer when they come to you to do a development. They do that with P&Z, correct?
That's correct.
And
But
so,
P&Z is just as adamant about, hey, how are you going to offset?
yeah,
Like Federal Realty put in all new sidewalks on West Avenue and pedestrian connections from West
Yep.
End Road.
yep.
John McCarroll's going to do an improved pedestrian connection from West Avenue down to the Palmer's. John's putting in a new bus shelter, which everybody will be talking to you about. So various amenities and
Will
improvements.
that need bollards as well?
So,
Only really good-looking ones.
I think we picked the one.
Only the best.
Yes, we know.
So you're right, there will continue to be development pressure, people looking to redevelop. Fred and I meet with people all day, every day about hey, I'm looking to buy this property, it's for sale, or it's not for sale, I own it, what can I do with it? And you can drive around town and probably figure out, based on the use or the building, boy, that really should be redeveloped into something, you know, like Bertucci's, for example. Could be a car wash.
So,
It had a nice run, but its time was,
will the zoning regulations change as far as the allowances given?
well, it's
It
interesting.
dictates something I'm gonna say, so I feel like if you can.
The zoning regulations, well, we try to keep generally the same gist, character, since, you know, Fred's book he brought tonight has 97 zoning changes since 2000. So in 25 years, there's been 97. Some of them are very minor, the size of a parking space, how many parking spaces, whatever. But we see 3 or 4 a year. State statutes allow builders, developers, and property owners to come to the commission with a zone change. However, the zone change must be found to be consistent with the town plan.
Okay.
So, for example, the town plan says, hey, no more rezoning for 3-story houses. Then anyone who changed the zoning to allow 3-story houses, they wouldn't be able to change the zoning, it wouldn't be consistent.
Yeah, I think that'd be a maybe recommendation of this board about no more changing, like the project we just saw off of behind the police station, that was changed from a commercial medical zone to a residential zone. And I don't know if the board feels like we should recommend no more, please stop changing things to more residential, maybe people like that.
On the flip side, we've got lots of offices that they're empty, and I mean, we haven't figured out what the office workplace is gonna be up in the future, but I'll tell you what, it isn't gonna be what it was before pandemic. So there's gonna be a lot of real estate there that needs to be rethought.
So 136, there are a couple of empty ones.
Yes, yeah, and for
they're
a
unkempt
long time.
as well, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So that is, one of the issues with the town plan is we have to write it for next year, but as you acknowledge, things are moving, the economy's changing,
Yep.
the way people work changed, their commute changes.
Yep.
You know, and as I said, residential properties are not moving as we sit here today. That could all change in 6 months from now.
If somebody wanted to take like an office building and rezone it to apartments or repurpose that structure but not take it down, then do we have something along those lines in the regs that allow for something, or a proposal like
Like do
that?
adaptive reuse,
Yeah.
Also the density, though, I think, you know, one of my biggest concerns with the Thornwood was just how dense and the overall footprint of the buildings were, the massing, I mean, it's, you know, in doing these, the rezoning, in terms of process on, for example, that particular site, was that review, you know, I apologize that I'm not familiar with what the process is, but is there public comment on it?
Yes, every zone change, state statutes require a public hearing. So the commission, on all 97 of those changes, had a public hearing.
Right.
That's why I have gray hair, because I've been to many public hearings.
But was the rezoning on that was kind of driven by the developer, though? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think
Sometimes the town, the Planning and Zoning Commission will come forth, and you'll see that over the next couple months. The most recent one the Planning and Zoning Commission put forth was above-ground propane tanks can no longer be in the front yard, they have to be screened. That was when the commission said, you know what, we should really do this. They put it forth, they had a public hearing, and then they adopted it. And you'll see, we're working on a couple over the next. So little things like that, and come up, and then the commission's like, we need to address this.
To a large extent, the comprehensive plan, the POCD, is implemented by zoning changes over time to implement the policies and action steps and recommendations of the plan. And in those cases, you'll often see the Planning and Zoning Commission or the town put forth those zoning amendments to implement the policies outlined in the plan versus the Thorndale Circle or a developer-centric zone change that would essentially allow the developer to make the changes they're looking for to redevelop a property.
So, I'm gonna say something very, forward, I guess, about what Nantucket has done that I think is something that I don't know, I doubt Darien would ever do it, but I think one of the beautiful things about Nantucket is every sale, property sale, then a percentage of it goes back into conservation. I don't know if you know
Well,
that.
there's only,
So,
we have-
so,
yes,
you
we
know,
talked
and
about
so
that.
like commercial space, if we're taking this and we're making this office space into, you know, a mixed-use multifamily, you know, it does a percentage of the sale, it does either a percentage of the property have to be allotted to a park or something like that, or does a percentage of the sale go into like redeveloping Great Island?
Right,
But
one,
it seems like if you're gonna give something away, that you should get something back, because that's the beauty of Darien, is it isn't overdeveloped.
right,
and-
we can only work within the guidelines the state gives us. So, for example, in many communities like Massachusetts, you can have impact fees. Can't do that in Connecticut. But I think we are able to do exactly what you said.
But you can define sort of for future state, that if you're converting an office
Right.
zoned area into mixed-use multifamily, that X percent of it has to be made into a public
Right.
park
And
area,
that's-
or just,
Yeah.
Right, we do
Green
have
space.
requirements for
Open
green
space,
space,
yeah.
but maybe they could be reevaluated in terms of, certainly that's, right, talking about more green space in residential
Yeah.
projects, certainly includes.
Something, because I feel like
Like public space.
public space.
Like, we have it downtown, you know, Grove Street Plaza's public space, so I think you could easily
I mean,
get something like that.
ideally
I'm
it's,
just thinking about
ideally
things.
it's both, right? Like, but, I mean, I don't know how you get around it, but I mean, it would be nice if you're gonna say, I'm gonna develop this large thing like behind Corbin, whatever, the thing behind the library, that you get, you know, the developer gives a certain amount to Great Island, right? Like, to develop, you know, a portion of
You're
a
talking
park
about,
or like,
you're talking about actual money
Well,
versus
both. I think
setting
both.
aside part of the development for public use.
you know, I don't know, in Nantucket, it's sort of both.
I do like the idea of reevaluating the requirements for green space for redevelopment.
Mhm.
I also, as long as we're looking at some of those things, I think just going back to Corndale, since it is kind of top of mind, it was a quite large project, right? How long was that building A or building B, the very, very long one?
200.
200?
A little over
Yes.
200 feet.
200 square feet, and I do think that, you know, to some extent, we try to make it as interesting as we can, but our ARB doesn't have any control over massing, height, or length. And I do think that it behooves the town to genuinely consider whether or not we want to continue to have these very long buildings, or do we say, at 150 feet, you need 10 feet of something. You need a walkway, you need to pass through no matter what. And I think that to get some of the scale down, because what we're struggling with is scale.
Giant boxes.
And the scale, I do think, you know, you read this and it all sounds great, but Norton Heights doesn't look like Norton Heights anymore. Like that, the character is gone
Yeah.
because of the scale, because like how large those two developments are and how they encroach onto Heights Road. Any opportunity to alleviate that by having a little bit of a further setback, you know, mandating, trees every 15 feet so that you would have at least some kind of canopy and illusion of green space, even if there wasn't any. Those are kind of lacking, and so, you know, how do we get a little bit of that character back? It has to do a little bit with the mass.
Some
That's
towns
the
have
limits of
design
the zone.
standards.
It's design, like you can
Design
do
standard.
that, and so for example, that's 200 feet. You can say every X amount of feet, something needs to change within the building, whether it's
Yeah,
depth or
We've done a
design.
lot of articulation,
We
but
tried that, and sometimes what's, you know, the developer's trying to get as many units in it, and has, you know, for the project to pencil out, you know, a
Yeah.
foot
I mean, it
can
comes
make a
back,
huge difference, right? Because you multiply it.
comes back to the zoning, because you
Comes back
can't
to the
say,
zoning.
you know, do this, but you're gonna lose two units every 50 feet, because they're gonna say, well, I'm allowed to
I'm allowed
build
to do
this
it,
much
yeah.
space.
Exactly.
yeah.
That's where I think, you know, potentially a little bit more,
Although the ARB was successful in reducing the amount of units of the Sedgwick project, because he started with like 22 or something, and that's now 14, because you guys were really interested in the connection between the building and the street, and then it was not happening the way it was designed at first. And so through the ARB interaction, I think the
That also had issues
It
with
was,
zoning.
but at the end of the day, that developer could have put what was allowable.
right, yes,
And I think that's that little nuance here of, you know, what's allowable and, you know, how much influence do we have?
I would, mine's getting back on this tangent, but, I think that most of these mixed-use developments or most of these, new developments are gonna be somewhat visible or somewhat close to Post Road. They're not like off in, Oxford's territory. So I think, in my mind, like even like a general statement or clause that like they need to have green space and connections to walking, whatever, like green space with connections to, walking paths, already within the town or something, so that, it becomes more of this village versus like a
Mhm.
large parking lot.
I like that idea too.
Yeah.
You know,
I like that.
something very, a little bit vague, but like
I like that.
puts it, the village needs to be
Yep.
maintained.
well, the village district is mentioned in chapter 8, and I think that's one of the one that has ARB as a leading or
But I think-
leader.
I think, saying a percentage of any new build has to be green space that connects with
Mm.
it.
Good, good.
Yeah, I like that idea too, but just double down on your idea about requiring certain like breaks after certain lengths, setbacks, and roof lines. Like I think like if we had had a zoning reg that had stopped the roof line on Federal Realty, that they could have put that longer, that it should have been after a certain degree, it has to now down to only 2 stories.
Yeah, I think the facade of Goddard School there is like one of the biggest things I look at and say, there was a missed opportunity there.
Oh, it's-
somehow.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Like, it could have been done a little bit differently at least to not, look as
Massive.
large and
And it's right up
not
to
as
the
well
street, I
designed.
mean,
as-
it couldn't be any
So,
closer.
Yeah.
if we're using that as an
It's a
example,
setback line.
and we're
Yeah.
sitting
Yeah,
here
that's
at the
what-
first
but
time that came
that's
to
what
us
was
2 years
allowed.
ago, what could we have
That's
done
what's allowed.
to make it better? Is it putting our foot down more to zoning and say, we're just not okay with how this is designed, and will you back us and say, even though they can do this, based on regulations, ARB is saying we don't think it fits within plan or, aesthetics that we're looking for, like it needs a break after 20 feet, or it can only be 2 stories at the road based on, the condition of where this building sits. What is it that we could have done if we're gonna use it as an example? I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm throwing the question out
Yeah.
there.
I know some towns have done like restrictions at the road and then be
Yeah,
able to step,
they're overlay zones. Yeah.
correct, so you can
Yeah.
step it back
Yep.
or get the third story or something like that. So maybe there's a way to massage that language in the future.
Or like, is that on us to come to you, or is that like
Well, in
a
terms of-
section of code to look at?
I know Steve Ovani has said repeatedly that they rely on ARB for these features, and they support ARB in terms of it's the rare, Steve said it, he's chairman of PMZ, hey, we try to support them as much as we can, and it's the very rare time. And I can't think of the last time that the commission said no.
So I think the recommendation you're hearing though is that it needs to be some sort of change in those, in the commercial guidelines. Right, if we are able to do.
I don't think it's the
To
commercial
acknowledge that
one.
ARB has, not like veto power, but has maybe, I guess because right now it's just kind of an unwritten thing that P and Z will follow ARB recommendations to a certain point, but, is there any way to formalize that a little more, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I think you had Steve come in like a year ago, which was super helpful to hear directly from him,
You did say, yeah.
what they look for from us and how much they do rely on it. That was very important, at least for me to hear, because it showed, kind of the impact that we can have on a development. I think, again, using some of these bigger developments as an example, it feels like maybe the design review that we were essentially doing for some of these bigger developments maybe should be done in a different way than the way that we do it now. And I don't have a good I don't want to answer to that, but you know, we get these big developments and come in and we sit around the table and there's almost, I mean, you've done a really good job pushing back and you need to push back, but it's like, some of them come in and there's an expectation that they're gonna come in and out of here in an hour, and like, there's just no way that should happen in so many of these, so.
That's my whole point about like, with the commercial guidelines don't have it in there. We're fighting against ourselves, because if we're saying we want more depth, more setback, and they're saying, well, we can legally do this, we're gonna do it, like, what's the point? Like, that's the part, that's where I don't understand where we can move forward unless things are, regulations are somehow changed, or things are explicitly altered in some way.
Well, is it zoning guidelines, or is it commercial design guidelines? Where is it that sort of, if I'm gonna put a developer hat on and say, well, the town is telling me I can build this box, it can be these 3 stories, and it can be this big and wide, and I can have the building right up to the sidewalk, because I'm allowed, and, okay, I'll make some adjustments for you, ARB,
Yeah.
because because I know you guys
Yeah.
count. Where is it that we can sort of say, no, these are the things that you are allowed to do, and you can't build that
Allowable
box.
limits,
So
but-
is it the zoning regulations?
Right.
Is that where we have to sort of?
Any
step up?
project must comply with the zoning regulations.
Right.
If it doesn't, P&Z cannot approve it.
Correct.
The commercial design guidelines, which we point people to, is the guidelines that the ARB uses to review projects, dealing with nitty-gritty of how an air conditioner should be placed, how the roofs, the styles, the shingles, the windows, some of the details that you guys have been looking for many years, which I guess you're going to take up and talk a little bit about refining those as well to reflect. Yeah. But the commission could put in some additional details in certain districts. Hey, in this zone, the front yard setback should be 3, 7, 10, 25.
Whatever.
The height should be this, no bigger, no more. Here's the setbacks, green space.
Yep.
There shall be minimum of 20% green space. Green space is this. There shall be pedestrian connections.
So I think that's what we're recommending, that there is a little bit more definition, so that, I mean, yes, okay, we've got the design guidelines, but.
Yeah, that's definitely not enough, because we've worked with those to do these developments, the Norton Heights, Darien Crossing, Sedgwick, and everyone has their opinion of how successful those projects have been from an ARB perspective. I think we've finally, at one point saying, okay, move along. We've done what we can here. It's not the product that would demonstrate our town's quality and craftsmanship and character that we're talking about here. So how do we bridge that gap?
Well, I think
That's
there's an
it.
overlay of where planning and zoning adds a little bit more definition to what is allowed.
That's where,
Why is it
that's where I
sim-
go back to having a little bit more of a guide that we need to go by, because.
Well, we do have commercial design guidelines,
Right.
it's just, do they need to be, I wouldn't say rewritten, but they obviously need to be reviewed.
Well, but they
just as much as
can't
anything else.
contradict what is allowed by zoning,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
If they have setbacks and if they adhere to it, like you mentioned,
Correct.
then they can move forward with designing something if it pertains to this, then there's a little bit of input,
Right.
but maybe is it the question of that some of the districts need to get the setbacks get refined a bit? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
And I think 2 things. One is whether we revise the commercial guidelines or not. When we get a first look at a project, I think we should have the ability to say, you're not ready yet. Go look at our guidelines and then come back to us as the starting point. And then also when we get a first look at a project, I think we all kind of know how many rounds it might take at this point to get to the point where we might feel comfortable with something and kind of some way try to set that expectation so when the next Sedgwick comes back, it's, no, you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
Go look at the guidelines, read through them, then come back to us, and then depending on where they're at, say, just so you know, it's probably gonna take, 3 to 6 meetings to get to a place where we're comfortable so that we don't feel that on, meeting 3, it's like, oh man, you've been here 3 times, like it's probably close enough. Because I feel like that's probably
Yeah,
what we
good
got with
compromise.
Apparel, where like we saw it once way back and then it came back on the sort of the same design and, you made a great suggestion about, the steps, or I guess that was the other project, but, you know, again, using that Goddard elevation, we probably were like, all right, they're close enough, when in reality, you know, we should use another round or so. And how do we set that expectation so people don't show up here, you know, on meeting one and think that, you know, this is it, it's a one and done. A lot of times it's just, there's no way. But on the opposite end, it is possible, because we did it last month, but it's about, you know, where they're at when we first see it.
That was the first time here.
You guys have to kind of start wrapping. I've got a couple other tangent things that are to throw out there. The board can cling on to it if they like or not. I think we should consider a historic home preservation tax relief credit program.
Really?
Do you have a historic home?
Yeah. And I mean, there's a way to go about that. I've done a lot of research on this, but there is a way. There are design guidelines, standards of design, right, that we can measure them by. As part of that, we might think about creating a historic district commission or committee, probably a better word. Commission is, it gets a little spotty, I know. I cannot believe Darien doesn't have a historic district committee that could be reviewing all the demolitions were in town, you know, plaquing houses officially, offering historic credits, also overseeing art, historic or downtown historic zone. And I also think the lack of attention given the fact that we have one of Connecticut's few we have I'm gonna butcher the actual, it's a true historic zone in downtown Darien. And it's where we saw like the new jewelry place, and I just feel like we are completely losing the character. One building came through here once, and we said, not a chance, you're not changing it, you're in a historic zone, we like put our foot down. But I feel like we need to go back to promoting that area, and also even thinking about laying a village district overlay zone on that area, and start building that back up and bringing back character historic homes there that are models for what our community should look like.
Exactly, I agree. We've talked in the past, but village district is a term of art in the state statutes where a town can designate a certain area, give them a little more design flexibility if they continue on with the character. So the one I always use is Prospect Avenue, beautiful historic homes. We want to keep that. What can we do to move those along?
I know.
Encourage those to remain while adding on to them.
Yep.
Village district would be one way to
I
do
think
it.
village district should be included back in and brought back in, especially as we're starting to lose the character more and more and putting up this modern mansion farmhouse. Prospect Avenue is a main area that we keep considering.
And then on a smaller note, the Pond Wheat House, the corner of Boston Post Road and Hollow Tree, one of the, if not the oldest house in town. Gentleman's just spent a lot of time, money, and effort renovating it. It's a really cool house.
Right, yeah, again, if we have historic preservation, sorry.
All the Hollow Tree Ridge all the way up, there's your oldest houses in town.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from that point on.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my big points.
Yeah.
So it's been, thank you. This is the type of feedback we want, we need. If you think of anything else, email Irving, email myself.
No, I'm gonna throw something out there too, as far as commercial development is, kind of sustainable guidelines.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you for doing this.
So, you know, I work for a firm that does high performance buildings, and getting to net zero is not that hard now. So the code is minimal as far as what can be done, and is there any way to encourage developers to include sustainable features on the projects?
That's a good point. That's a big emphasis of the state, and they've made the town have to address that sustainability, resiliency in the plan.
Right.
Norwalk, for example, has a regulation that solar is required no matter what, and then the developer has to kind of back out of that, and they've had some issues because not every building is perfect for solar, but
Well, that's part of
encouraging,
the review.
emphasizing, figuring out ways, whether it's in the design guidelines or the zoning regs, to kind of make that known to people, if you will.
So at this point, I mean, is there anything written in the 2016 POCD addressing that? And what is at least on the table for the 2026?
I think I saw something about sustainability, but it's vague.
Yeah, there's nothing
It's
on the
not
table
I don't know
yet.
if I
specific
got there, I
about-
may fall
Yeah,
asleep on
no,
that.
or maybe it's, I feel like I read it somewhere.
Okay, I'll
But it's,
keep going on.
but it's not as robust as it could be.
Well, also 10 years ago, yeah, there's
It-
the technology is a
Totally,
long way.
a
and-
lot of it is very accessible now,
But
and it
that's-
doesn't cost you.
So that's the type of thing that our consultant's looking for feedback, so when he watches the video, that'll be, and Fred's taking notes as well, because that certainly is, as you said, where are we going in the next 10 years? That's certainly one place where we're going for the next 10 years.
Yeah, like Selleck Woods, for instance, I asked the question, solar on the roof, they're like, yeah, that's a great idea, but that's all they have to say. So, if there was, I don't know, there's incentives and
Tax
everything else.
incentives in Connecticut, I know New York
There are,
State,
yeah,
Florida
certainly,
has
yeah.
a ton.
Yeah,
tax
there's a lot of
incentives.
tax incentives out there, so. Also operating costs, all that stuff
All
is
that.
part of the selling point.
Yeah.
So something else that I'd like the consultants to take a look at is recommendations as far as lighting, right? We used to not allow backlit lighting, now we seem to have halo lights everywhere, and there is a few that have gotten by us on either the lumens or the Kelvin from it, and they are seem to get brighter and bigger, and whether or not we should kind of go back to our gooseneck style that we had before and kind of give up on these halo lit signs, because I think we are starting to look a little bit more like Sanford, downtown Sanford, probably. And so, and then the other thing is really, street trees, plantings, street trees that, it's been called out in our commercial design guidelines, I believe, but no pillar varieties, like large canopied trees, and ones that will not be pruned down to 20 feet. Like, I've lived in this town for 9 years now, and the amount of trees that we've cut down has really changed the character of it. And I do think that getting some nice larger trees, street trees, where our source allows us to, because I realize that is our limiting factor, that should be supported. And then the other thing that I really liked in the 2016 plan of conservation was the Norotan Heights, changing the daily parking lot to be in between the train station and 95 and turning that area into a park. I think that it's that's on page 95.
Okay.
I think that's so fantastic and would be so amazing for the town. I think it would just be incredible and it would help. I mean, if you look at the 1934 aerial of the town, there used to be a pond right where Vivala's Deli is, and it doesn't surprise me at all that is where it wants to be, where it wants to be. And so it would be nice to have some, park and then stormwater mitigation and green space and a new place to gather, because I don't think, as much as we intended the Darien Commons and the Palmer's area to become areas that we will walk in, I don't see that happening, seeing the mass of the buildings and how they are. But having a place just across the street where people can gather, I think it's just, I think it's such a no-brainer for this town. And I would love to continue and keep that in our plans, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Jeremy and Fred, thank you guys so much for coming.
Sure thing.
And-
We'll let you get on to your regular meeting.
So, so what we'll do is, Dave and I will share notes, we're gonna pass them to you, I know that you can review this, but I think it's better to have like an organized set of
Yeah, that'd
notes.
be great.
So Dave and I will collect them, I'm gonna have the board review, make sure we hit all the top flying things. If we're good with them, then I'll pass them to everybody and get you guys.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you all for taking the time out, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Fred, thanks for P&Z support of us. Fred's the main, he's the main faculty member like Carebank for P&Z. You're always fighting for us,
Absolutely.
whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
You're
but
in.
there was a flood.
Okay, Channel 79, we can close the, sorry, I should probably say on record, we will officially now at 6:54 close the meeting, the special meeting of the Darien Architectural Review Board for the POCD. So that's that. And then in 6 minutes, we'll start our next meeting.
You said it's 6:54? I have 6:54.
Oh, are you ready?
4 minutes of that.
Yeah,
Channel 79, we good?
Yes.
Hello and welcome to a meeting of the Darien Architectural Review Board. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. My name is Elizabeth Geiger. I'm chairman of the board. With us tonight, we have Kate Poselli. Wait a second here. I'm sorry. With us tonight, we have Kate Poselli, David Humphrey, Joe Muro, Anya Janis, Christina Hart, Alex Lopatinsky, Rebecca Morrison, and David Riley. Going into new business, our first item tonight is ARB number 14 for 2025. It's also PL 2552 in Viewpoint. You can head on up and introduce yourself to the, there you go.
Hello again. I had met you shortly at the last meeting a month ago. Ron Main Construction. We do construction and we have a kitchen line. We'd like to have this new, that's Susie, my partner who's supposed to be here. She's probably looking for the room right now.
Okay.
So she came up with the designs. We're gonna sell kitchens, wine coolers, hardware, butcher blocks, tables. And so she came up with this design for the new sign. At the last meeting, we had brought up, we were gonna do a hanging or a splayed sign or something like that. And we determined the height wasn't right, so we came up with this, which you all contributed to with going to the overhang. If possible, we'd like to put a light in front of it, an LED light, just to maybe highlight it later down the road. We do have some of the, there she is. This is Susie, the designer. So perfect
So that's
time.
your business name, right?
We're going with that. We did already through the town for DBA off of Main Construction, so Main Construction won't be on there. It'll be the design and build show house.
Design and build show house.
Mhm.
I still understand why you guys did this, not a blade sign. I mean, it sounds like the rest of the board might be not agree with me. I don't love this L shape, I'm sorry. I think it won't look great on the sidewalk. Because we went this with the adjacent building next to it.
Don't they have that?
They tried this next door and we said no, and we put up a normal sign, it looks good. And then we said if you want to do something that you could see both ways for traffic, then put up a blade sign like every other person does in town.
The issue was a height restriction. We determined it was 7'6" or something
Yeah,
like
so we
that.
had a blade sign right here, right there.
Yeah.
And the bottom of it is, because of the sidewalk goes up, down, up like towards the corner. Check like mine and a couple of other stores have, but the bottom of their signs are 100 inches. The most we can get is the top of that door frame.
Just 6 feet.
Like here, no, at
Oh, this
the
one?
frame. Yeah.
So 7.
And that was like 8 feet exactly.
8 is the
Oh,
absolute,
yeah, I'm okay
8
with
is
the
the
blade sign
minimum, but
looking, like, sorry.
It was a
8 is
little
the
low.
minimum for clearance, 94 inches, but
I think we were 7.
the one,
Right.
yeah, you were lower than that.
That's 84.
The one thing
Yeah.
that they did here was there is a difficulty dealing with this soffit, the fascia that moves around, this whole entire thing, it just kind of curves around. So one of the, if you want to call this a parallel blade sign follows the face of the fascia above, but then because it's not parallel in the storefront itself, it just provides the opportunity to turn and create that like visual. That's kind of I think that's the concept that, if you like it or not, but that's how it came
Yes,
about.
I understand, I sadly don't love it. That's my opinion, if the rest of the board disagrees, then there you have it, then that's why it's a board. I'd rather see a blade sign now, I think when it comes to, it's gonna look boxy and heavy on a street. But
There's another.
but I love the other improvements, I love that you removed that old awning, I think the window clings you guys put there were kind of fun, tasteful, good, I like your descriptions. The font,
It's the same image.
and the sign materials are, right, is that a wood? You're
Gonna
making
be a wood
yourself,
sign with some brass lettering.
are you guys making it yourself?
We will, yes.
Yeah, I would assume so, amazing, great, be sure I figure out, okay, cool. Okay.
I don't mind.
I think it's a challenge.
It's kind of like a combo of a sign and a blade sign.
Yeah, it's a challenge site.
I think,
Design.
you know, because it's the nature of the store and you guys are building it yourself, that, you know, might allow it to be a bit of an exception. I mean, looking at the existing, this is the old Coldwell Banker, right?
Yeah, with the big blue awning.
I mean, that, you know, that came down,
Yeah.
the sidewalk does go up
Yeah, it's pretty.
Obviously, that was up for a while without
Can I,
seemingly an issue.
Can we have an
As far as-
exception for the bottom of the blade sign?
can
You can.
you, hurry, can you pull it up again?
Oh, so I was just gonna give you also the existing, so this is just the height of the door, pretty much 6'8" here, so you get like, and that's what the part you said is going up a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Can you pull
Where-
up the,
I can pull up the old
PDF.
ones.
yeah,
Yeah,
the,
that
yeah, that
This
image.
one?
Yep. So, no, the next one, where they zoom out.
The one.
Yeah, that's where it was.
So,
The one-
so, can I ask you, maybe I should know this, but I don't have it in front of me. How tall is the, sign?
It's 1'2".
And
14 inches.
What is the, soffit or whatever above the window? No.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh, it's right here.
It's not attached, right?
No, it hang-
we know
it's
this is
actually-
not attached.
It's
Yeah, I
ex-
know,
Okay.
but what is it?
It's, the hairdresser next door has the same exact sign, but without the L. And it's hung on the soffit.
But I just think it would be, I'm just wondering whether you could
The piece
almost
of,
like.
it's 18 inches.
Make
That,
it look like
the
two.
white part above is
What?
18
Like
inches.
Like two.
No, why can't you wrap the thing, like basically, yeah, start there, right? Put the
Just
D
have
and the
your L
B,
here.
D, B there, right? And then,
It's on an angle of the building.
It's on a 30-degree
Oh.
angle.
That glass
It's not parallel
is-
with the street.
So the
That
sign is
particular
parallel
storefront.
with the street, which is how the hairdresser has it. So it will be in line with the hairdresser sign. We're just a corner, so
yeah.
this way we can see
You know, it's
the,
definitely a challenging building. You guys have done very thoughtful stuff. I mean, I don't know, it sounds like, so Alex, you don't mind it, Christina?
I mean, it's a funky,
Dave Riley.
it's
I
a
don't
funky
know.
building,
No,
ins and outs.
because it's a funky building, that's why,
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
How
it's
thick
al-
is
it's also set back, like, because of the angle,
Mhm.
you know, we're like very pushed in. So
Yeah.
it's not gonna be like an obstruction when you're walking down the sidewalk where this thing, because we're kind of, this facade is like on this angle, stepped
Yeah.
back.
How thick is the wood you're gonna put there?
The what?
How thick?
The wood, it's probably
Three quarter.
5 quarters, 1 inch, inch and a quarter maybe.
I just wish it followed the line of the, bottom of the window.
With the angles in.
So just,
No, I know, even if it just like. was-
It's in line with it, in plan.
Even if it was tall.
I don't think it's
Way
gonna
taller.
follow.
So if you click to the drawings, it's, I think we have a plan also.
I don't know.
That's the old drawings. That's
Yeah, it
the
is.
old blade
I
sign.
only found
See, that's right.
on this beautiful file, I have 2 images loaded on April 17th. And that's it.
Oh, okay.
March
This is
24th,
the-
17. You may have sent it to me email, but it's not in that.
Okay, well, I can pass it around.
Yeah, you can show them.
So in plan,
Because right now it looks like the long side is parallel with the
The
actual
road.
soffit,
They're just
but
right.
and also
this
the
is
road.
the angle of the building.
Yeah.
It's pretty steep, so the angle of the sign squares it off.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm saying that I actually would like it, taller so that, the sign taller so that it matched, like.
The 18 inches.
Yeah.
The white piece at the top of the building is 18, but because of the square footage restrictions, we can't go over 6.9 square feet for the sign because of the length of the facade.
Mhm.
So that's why it's only a foot, 14 inches. But we would prefer it bigger, but then we would be over the 6.9.
You'll never perceive it because of, because it's just too far away from the storefront. You'll never, I mean, it's only a couple inches.
Yeah, as far as the relative.
You're
yeah,
never
gonna
gonna
see it
perceive
dead on.
that they're not aligned.
Do you want it on a hanger to drop it?
How would it be mounted to the soffit?
I mean, it would be nice to have a hanger. It would be pretty to have
Yeah.
like maybe like these,
Even like a couple
We
of
definitely
inches
could do
that.
centered in that space.
and then we can bring it down without going over.
The blue awning that was up there, that was lower than what,
Yeah.
It's a lot lower, yeah.
that would be lower than the plates.
Because it's on a hanger.
Yeah,
Why can't the
Yeah,
lights
and
be
why
just right there?
We're putting
We had it on the last meeting and it was
we had it.
7 feet rather than the 8 foot, and it was brought up that we couldn't use a light on it. And if we went this way, we'd be able to put a light in front of
So I'm
it.
okay
So
with
that's
this.
It's
just
my
not-
regulations, but I know it's 7
It's
inches.
difficult to
This
get.
is weird that it's gonna
10 inches when you get the logo and the font, it becomes so tiny. Most of the blade signs are 3 feet by 2 feet on that strip. So then they can have their signage look so, like their letters are big enough. But if we reduce to 18 inches, our logo gets so tiny with the
Okay,
letters.
so I think you're okay with as is, I guess.
Can we go back to the rendered view? So the, what is the color of the panel? Is that black?
That's black with gold letters.
Yeah.
And then all the lettering, that's all,
On the windows,
yeah,
that's all white decal.
okay.
So that's your final letter, not the temporary you talked about in your email to us?
Yeah, no, this is final.
That's fine. Okay,
The other one is just a poster, because
okay.
they want that sign down, the
Yeah, that
import
was,
sign,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we got.
So that was
calls
just
about
a
that.
temp poster that we would have made.
Got it, so that's why the 25% temporarily up.
Yeah.
Got it, okay, thank you. I figured just easier talking.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
annoying them, that sign,
Okay,
so
so
we made a poster.
the catch up here, they're putting up a temporary window cling, it's gonna be 25% coverage, it's just temporary, and then this will be the final window clingage, which is under the 10% limit.
And are we allowed to put phone numbers down?
You could do what you want on your window cling, yeah. We can decide if we don't like it or not.
Yes, I agree.
Can you justify the phone number right? You have everything else?
Can I just, oh,
Yeah.
The phone number is correct.
No,
like
justify,
a line and a
right.
hook on the
Oh.
right side,
oh, yeah, yeah,
Towards the
instead
right.
of left,
Yeah,
just
that's fine.
notification.
yeah, we could do that.
Could I just get a clarification? The letters are brass painted or are they
They're gonna be brass.
Brass,
Brass.
pin mounted.
Okay. And what is the attachment method to the soffit? You know, it's,
There'll be a backer board behind it, and we can
so
screw
you're
it
gonna have
into
a,
it.
yeah, rectangular, okay,
Yes.
and then mount that into, so you're gonna
Yes.
see, and that'll be painted white to match
Yes.
the soffit? Okay.
Should
And in
we
terms of the
consider or
lighting,
recommend,
I'm sorry?
Should we consider or recommend something to allow it to hang, like some sort of?
Well, this
Or some
was-
So Dave, the one next to it doesn't, it's that same sign, like, that
Yeah, same.
hair place has the exact same thing, so look, I feel like it would look weird if we didn't, we were just talking about. Remember the, what was it called?
It's Ilya Rob.
Yeah.
Yes, it's mounted up against the, it's mounted up against the soffit.
And if you don't mind, you see the, on the right side of the door, that's the only place where main construction comes in.
Yeah,
Happiness is our
That's
main
cute.
concern.
it's cute, it's very good, very witty.
Question on the lighting, you asked about putting lights, so what would those be, just pinhole lights in the soffit?
It
To run the
probably,
wiring for that, you know, there's,
yeah, it might be an LED strip light, possibly.
how would that be concealed though? I'm a little
You have to have a
concerned.
shield or
Yeah.
something,
We could do a shield.
like a quarter round type shield and LED, so you get you see the light from the street. 'cause
Yes,
Just quickly
So
on the
linear
LED
strip,
lights, you have to be
concealed,
yeah,
careful of
concealed strip,
lumens
LED strip light.
on it.
Because I don't think the
and,
recessed lights would do it justice, get enough
the
light
temperature
there.
of it. So it has to be, I would like it under 40, in that area, I'd like it less, because everything else is goose lights, so I'd like it 4,000 Kelvin or less. And the lumens, either you gotta put on a dimmer, so, you know, if it's too bright, we don't like just remove it, or, you know, go with a really light lumen, like very, very light.
You said how many, up to 4,000?
Yeah,
Nice,
40,
yeah.
yeah, 4,000 probably.
35.
Yeah,
2,700.
27 is very.
3,500 Kelvin
3,000
Right.
is
for the
very
brightness,
white.
with a dimmer
Isn't
switch.
light.
Yeah.
We've been asking for under 5,000, some of them are looking like, yeah.
So if you are gonna add lighting, that needs to come through us. So you, wouldn't make you come back to the board, but you need to send those a spec sheet to Hervé to review, and he'll
Definitely.
run that by us.
Yeah, if you choose to.
What would
add it.
what would the cover of that LED light be made of? Would you make it metallic or just try to hide it with the white, or how do you kind of,
Well, since we're in the wood business, probably just some kind of nice molding,
Okay.
low profile.
Just a tiny
So
little, like
little
tape light.
strips.
Like
So
just a
little
strip.
tape strips
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
mounted to the underside. Right?
Yep.
Sort of like a wood trim concealer.
Like a brick mold thing.
Possibly, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so you send me the specs and what it looks like,
Oh, definitely.
so that I can write you a certificate.
Mhm.
and
It would be
see-
very subtle.
Yeah,
We
I
don't
know.
need it to be flashy
Yeah,
at
that's the
night.
idea.
Yeah.
It's hard to see. No, I agree. No, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay. I think that's a favorable report despite the debate. Thank you guys for coming. We will get you a letter. The one change on the phone number, right, justifying temporary sign is approved. It's gonna be up for how long did you say, 3 months? What'd you say?
Yeah, we're hoping.
3 months, yeah.
Okay. And then, any lighting spec sheet needs to be sent through Hervé.
That could be done.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, welcome to town.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, next up
Thanks.
is ARB number 15, 2025, which is PL 2561 at 104, 108 Old Kings Highway North. Come on up, guys, introduce yourself. You guys remember we reviewed these buildings a few months ago along Old Kings Highway there, just next past Trader Joe's, past that, not sushi place, that hibachi place. And I will let them explain what's happened and why the revisit. But we had seen this and never seen it again.
Sounds very different.
Hi, good evening. My name's Dan Conlon. I'm an architect for the project. As was just mentioned, we came before this board a few months back with a proposal for this site, which was given a favorable report. We subsequently went to EPC, and after several iterations in that application, were ultimately denied approval from that board. And so they had a series of issues that they wanted us to address, and that's where this design came from. Basically, the issues were they wanted us to increase the distance of our development from the watercourse on the property, and the property has a small stream that borders it on two sides, kind of straight along the street, along Old Kings Highway North, and then sort of makes a north turn and runs along the border of the neighboring property. So one thing they wanted us to do was move further away from the stream. Second thing was they wanted to simplify our construction methods so that as we move further away from the stream, we didn't need to do a whole lot of temporary protection of the stream as part of our construction. So in the old proposal, we had to put in essentially cofferdams in order to protect the stream while we were digging our footings. That's no longer required. We reduced greatly the impervious surface on the site, so actually the new proposal has a net decrease in impervious surface from existing conditions, not only from our old proposal, but from the existing conditions. The way we did that was to place the parking underneath the structures. So if you recall, in our previous scheme, we had a parking lot in the center and two buildings on either side. It was a double-loaded parking setup that ran from front to back on the site. And now what we've done is place the parking underneath the structures and have only the drive in the center as the part that's exposed to the sky. That enabled us to reduce the impervious surface. It also, another issue that came up is what are you going to do with the snow when it snows and we have to plow it? Where does it go? Well, by putting all that area under cover, there's less snow to remove. So we're able to address that situation. So once again, this site is kind of tricky in that there's a watercourse that runs along the street and then turns up one side. There's an existing crossing in the middle of it. We looked at making access to this site anywhere along this way, but found that the only practical way to get a viable parking lot was to keep the access where it was, over the existing culvert. So we're continuing to do that as we did in last scheme, and parking underneath the buildings. As a result of this, we need to stay 3 stories tall to conform with the zoning regs. So we're going to lose a lot of units here. So Our previous proposal was 12 were reduced to 8. So each building will have 2 units on each of 2 floors for a total of 8 units. The units will be slightly bigger than the old units, and that was driven really more by having a building that could coordinate with the geometry of a parking lot. So we had to be able to get the building to cover the parking spaces, and we had to arrange it in such a way that we can get columns between the cars and so forth. So that led to slightly larger units, and that's the subject of more discussion with us in P&Z, because they currently have a cap on that for this particular zone. We're asking them to raise that cap in terms of the square foot per unit. So that's basically the design strategy in terms of plan and site. And I'll just sort of put up our renderings to give you an idea of what we're proposing for the 2 structures. So again, similar to our original proposal, there are 2 buildings. They are mirror images of one another, but they're organized a lot differently now, obviously, because they have the parking underneath and only 4 units per floor. The material palette, all of the colors we're proposing, and I'll get into that a little bit more later, are the same colors that we reviewed and approved last time, just a lot fewer of them. So there's 2 buildings and only 2 colors. The main masses of the building are punctuated in places in the plan to kind of break up the mass of it, so that where we have, say, bathrooms in the plan, we have a little indent in the building, and we had to be careful not to make these things too big, because then we had one of the cars parked underneath the building with its nose hanging out, so it was pretty crazy. But we ended up with a couple of small punctuations that breaks each of the front facades into 2 pieces, and then we pulled the entry and stair piece off to the side of both buildings. So building A is the one to the south, building B to the north, and the entry stairs are on opposite ends of the site. So for building B, it's to the far north, for building A, it's to the south. And then we just, articulated them as separate little tower pieces with little glass in between to kind of further break it up and to create some sense of an entry from the street. Because it's a little tricky on the site because there's nowhere to park on the street. And really, the owners are going to access this building from the parking garage. They're going to drive in, they're going to park their car, and they're going to go. So one of the thoughts here is that we create some light in this entry space that actually kind of spills in through the door into the garage. So when you're coming from your car to the unit, you have this bright spot that you're approaching. The design of the facade is sort of a classical, urban 3-piece design, right? There's a bottom, a middle, and a top. And so the base, we're proposing to do a natural stone veneer. Sean was good enough to grab a sample of it, but it's basically just Connecticut fieldstone. So it's a natural palette. And, we have corner pieces also, so when the stone, you want to grab this little head? But when the stone turns a corner on the building, it doesn't look like it's been licked and sticked. It looks like it has real depth to it. And the same detail occurs at the windows, so.
Is it cultured stone?
No, it's natural stone.
It's natural stone.
It's natural stone.
No, you didn't want to hold it?
Yeah.
I wanted to see what it is.
Yeah. And so that's, in quotes, Connecticut fieldstone, which by its nature has a lot of variation in it. That's a mosaic pattern. That's what we selected. But again, those corner pieces kind of make all the difference because the windows you want to set back from the facade and look as if that's a real stone veneer on the building. Also, for building code reasons, when you're parking underneath, the lower story has to be non-combustible construction. It needs to be masonry. So the structure of this is going to be concrete, clad with this thin stone veneer. Then above it, we have just traditional kind of New England palette of materials. Clapboard siding. I have some samples with me. We're going to use some composite siding material, which is the same that we proposed for the last version. Double hung windows.
Is that like hardy plank or?
No, well, actually what we're proposing is this duration material. And it's a polymer product, and I think it's a whole lot nicer than hardy plank for a couple reasons, but the main one is it has, this is, it's Duration. Duration is the name of the company that makes it. It's a polymer product mixed with fly ash and some other goodies in their secret sauce, but it's got a real bevel to it, so it looks like clapboard. And hardy board is just rectangular. So I think that makes a nicer shadow line.
It's like true exterior. Okay, is from the- okay.
A true exterior is also a similar product, a Boral product, right? That's right. Similarly, the trim will be made out of the same stuff, and we built up this cornice on the top out of the available profiles from this company. What's nice about this stuff is it doesn't absorb water, it doesn't move, and you can paint it any color you want because it doesn't have a big thermal expansion. So that's why we like to use it a lot. So this cornice, which is very similar to the one from the previous application, is built out of the same stuff. Once again, our rooftop equipment will be screened. This cornice is a parapet. And we have a little section that's kind of probably hard to see at this scale, but there are parapet walls that come up tall enough so that you can't see the equipment from anywhere. Equipment will all be located on the roof. The buildings are going to be 100% electric, so no fossil fuels. All the heat will be individual heat pumps for each apartment unit. And then I'll make
So there's various source heat pumps on top?
air-to-air heat pumps, correct. And then there'll be interior air handlers in each unit, so it's a ducted system, but air-to-air heat pumps on the roof. And then I'll put up this, hopefully that'll.
So those air ducts, but we don't see those in the building, where is the output of those?
They just go home to a little air handler within the apartment units themselves. So
And
there's a
then back
little,
up to the roof?
nothing to the roof. The only thing on the roof is the heat pump itself, which is just like the outdoor piece of your home air conditioner, so that no ducts go to it.
Huh.
So no ductwork on the roof, all the ductwork is internal on the units, and we've got 10-foot floor to floors, so we're able to have duct soffits inside the units.
Okay.
So there's nothing on top of the roof. What else can I say about this? So this is my material sample board, which gives you an idea of the colors. Again, these are Benny Moore colors, same ones. They're among the same ones that we showed you last time, just a lot fewer of them. In terms of the palette, we had originally used a black paint, but we looked at that and agreed it was kind of too much for one of these units. The buildings themselves didn't break down into as small of a group as we had in the last proposal. There's a photograph of this stone veneer material installed rather than hauling 100 pounds of stone. I remember there was a comment actually after the approval about our fencing, and we're still proposing a vinyl fence, but we found a company that makes a really great wood grain fence. So this particular color, they call it walnut. I don't know why they call it walnut, but it's a nice wood grain fence, and it's a lot easier, I think, on the eyes than a stark white vinyl fence, especially given the rest of this color palette. This little section drawing here, which is included in your package as well, just details how we're treating the windows, because we thought that was important with the stone. There was a comment earlier, I believe a preliminary comment from the board about this belt course here in the building, and could that be made out of stone? And I'm not sure if it was clear that we actually had this belt course in our drawings.
It didn't look like it on the previous rendering. This is better.
Yeah, I think these renderings are a little better. We're always fiddling with the color, and it's
still flatter than what your detail there. But.
Yeah, and it's hard with these renderings because getting that color to match the Benny Moore color is like good luck. It looks great on your screen, and then you print it, and that's what happened. But those are the real color samples. But anyway, this band will cap the stone. And as it goes around the building, it becomes the edge of these little balconies, it becomes the edge of the roof overhang at the entries, and just goes all the way around as a continuous datum, so you've got that bottom, middle, top organization to the building. Let me just take a look at my notes and see if I missed anything.
Are you treating the link with the same kind of material as the band, like this drawing? is showing?
Yes, we are, and the detailing in that can get a little tricky because this deck is going to be a concrete deck, but we're still going to fasten the same material to the outside of it.
Okay.
So this band and that band will be the same, and it'll be this same material up here in the same color.
I see.
So we did that for consistency in there, and then the window treatment, we were intentionally consistent because I think it helps just the rhythm of the facade if those are repetitive elements, and we just make this small recess in here to break it up a little bit, and
A little bit of copper?
a little bit of copper. And this is sort of way more visible in this rendering than it's gonna be in real life, because the pitch is only this high, so you have to be really tall to be able to get at this angle and see it. So it'll just appear as a band. And that's one of those places where I needed to bump this in, but I couldn't move that wall an inch because I couldn't get a parking space underneath if I did. So, so that was sort of the.
So Dan, let me jump in so we can keep
Sure.
moving along.
Yep.
You always do a really thoughtful presentation, so thank you. Great attention to detail. One thing, God bless you, I feel like the windows are, like, there's some unfinished business there.
Yes.
Like you've got, okay, you can jump. For me, I'm kind of confused in the style. Like, I feel like you've got these modern windows at the end and like opportunity there, but then you go back to the traditional, I feel like they're lacking in character, depth, sills, and then maybe say it differently.
Well, maybe-
Also, they don't mix with what's inside. Like, I feel like you could have opportunity for actually some more modern interest based on the floor plan I'm seeing.
Yeah,
I mean, perhaps, I mean, I think the notion was to kind of keep a traditional facade to the building
I
and
think
that.
it worked on your old building.
It worked on your old buildings. There's something, and you mentioned it, the old building, because you were able to break down the scale of the box a little bit more and the variety of color, it helped break down the massing. Right now, these look like giant blocks. And the windows aren't, because they're so regular, aren't helping to break down that rhythm or
Yeah.
that box. It's just, they just look like two big packages.
For me, it's the
I
elevator
would-
tower. The
And
elevator
that, and the
tower is
elevator
just
tower too, yeah.
very,
It's a
like you have
box.
great windows on the side, but in the front of the
Yeah,
building,
yeah, yeah.
that just seems like a big, huge,
Like you'd rather see them on the front versus the end
yeah.
Yeah.
for light.
Yeah, I was looking
Yeah.
at where
Yeah.
the street was and how like even like
Like the building on the right, because it's coming around the corner, I can see, and maybe hide it with trees. But the other building being, that's your.
Well, I think that actually we intentionally did this for two reasons. Number one is it makes a really nice, bright public spaces, right? So you have a lot of daylight in the entry,
Oh, yeah, no,
and you have a
that's-
bright
that's-
public space on each
that's
floor.
That's nice, yeah.
That's nice.
And we're able to keep the elevator mass and the stair kind of concealed in this solid block. And sort of absent that, the blockiness of the building becomes, much more apparent. I think that
Big tree.
to arbitrarily vary these windows, if you say you wanted to do something different in the windows, I'd still make them all the same. Because they're all the same function in the units, they're in the same places in the floor plans. And I mean, if you look in an
Some of
apartment
those are
building,
bathrooms, right? I feel like there's some. the
just
small-
these ones, that's why they're a little
Yeah.
smaller. And then they sit back in the recess.
Some of them are living
How
rooms,
big are
some
the
of
windows?
them are
Too
kitchen.
regular.
It's just too regular.
Yeah, too regular.
Yeah, how big are the
I,
windows?
but why would you vary it?
Well, but
Why would you,
I-
why would you
there's-
take that and vary it? That doesn't make any
You have
sense
a
to me.
bedroom here and
You
a
got
living
two
room
big
there.
boxes.
Right, but look at any apartment building. Look at any apartment building, and the windows are all regular. They're all regular.
I feel your passion, but I think I hear you, but it feels like yeah, regular is a great word. It's
I'm not
missed
sure we
opportunity.
want it to look like an apartment building. We don't
But-
look like, okay, a bunch of apartments are here. Like, I think we would like a little bit more character to it.
Well,
Because you're onto something with the stone and the windows and the way it's set. Like, that's a beautiful base, and then something goes a little bit awry up top.
I mean, I think that,
And then there's no roof.
It's
I-
traditional.
but here's a little bit what I'm trying not to do, okay, when you say you don't want it to look like an apartment building. I'm trying not to do a podium building, and we see hundreds of those going up all around us right now. And one of the things about doing this kind of detailing is you distinguish yourself a little bit from that podium building where everything is flat, right? And so this has projecting crown heads and bigger sills and wider casing and a little bit more of a traditional window, but it's 2/2. It's not a 6/6 window, right? So it's not trying to say colonial.
Given the mass of the block?
I think you see it.
That level of detail that you're talking about?
I think you do.
But you're not gonna be walking by it, you're gonna be driving by it. You really won't be able to see that nuance.
Well, I think there's a big difference. I think there's a big difference between that and just putting a flat casing on there or no casing.
I agree.
Yeah.
But the entire elevation of that one block feels flat. It just feels flat, even though the detail that you're talking about lives in the window. But the mass of the elevation is what I think we're all reacting to.
It is, but let me back you up a little bit too to some of the sort of constraints of the site. So if I go back to the very first plan that I put up here, let me navigate my way back to that one.
Or pediment over the windows.
Okay. So unfortunately, parking is the tail that wags the dog on this project, okay? As is the case in a lot of things, especially in a suburban environment, right? So we have a fixed dimension that we have for a parking space, a fixed dimension for an aisle, and we have a fixed dimension for setbacks and so forth. So the footprint of this building is the smallest building I could make and cover the parking spaces. So if you said vary the building and have it jog in and out, half the cars are hanging out from under the building, half are, in the building. So I have this constraint right here, this distance, it's fixed. I've got all these at the minimum dimension required by the zoning people. So, and as a matter of fact, when I got into the design, I had to make the building a couple inches longer because I didn't have enough room for a column between the spaces. So all of this stuff, so that footprint can't get any smaller,
We get that.
and in some ways it can't get bigger.
Yeah, I get that. I just think there's opportunities for windows. I mean, some of those are in your main family room. You could do large windows that even reflect the windows on the end of your columns.
Or like a pair window.
Yeah, pair window, large, and you could reflect on both sides actually. So what you do on one,
Compare two
on
or
those
one
could
and then.
be on that,
flip it
could be
on
flip flop from those others, but so it wouldn't be. So the rhythm would be in the parallel of the two buildings,
Well,
right? See, look, yeah.
What's the height of the window?
5 feet.
5 feet, and you're pegging it where, at 7 feet off the ground?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, and
Do
also,
you have 9-foot ceilings?
well, I have 10-foot floor to floors. I've got 9-foot
10
ceilings in
floor.
general, soffits in places.
Okay.
Another constraint that I have is these have to be egress windows.
Right.
Because of the design of this particular building with a single stair, they have to be egress windows. So they don't have to be double hung windows.
You could go 5'5".
I could do 5'5".
5'5", get a little extra so
I
that
could
it
do
looks
the-
so squatty. I think that's for that
Yeah,
facade.
that's right.
It looks squatty, so
That's
if we
right.
get bigger,
Yeah.
or 6-foot or even casements, so you get the
Yeah.
egress, something
Yeah.
like that.
They make casements that look like double hung too.
No, yeah, with a simulated check rail.
I would.
You could do
I would
that,
argue
but then
making
why would I make a
wouldn't be
casement
more
to simulate what I was doing already?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
know what you're trying to do, yeah,
Yeah, but could the windows be taller? Certainly.
maybe.
Um,
That might
Or
help
maybe
it.
between like the first floor and the second floor, there's a little bit of, the first floor windows are a little taller.
What did
The
it,
second
exactly,
floor
Yeah.
windows are a little bit.
first floor big, so it looks like a house, right?
We could do that. We
First
could do
floor
that.
bigger.
If this was a little taller, I'm gonna push back a little bit on ganging up and making bigger windows. So the units do have, and again, it's really not apparent from the street, but they do have these bigger openings where we have these sort of, Juliet balconies on the side. Those doors go to the floor, and then in the spaces facing between the buildings, there are two outdoor balconies. So those have doors going out, so that kind of punctuates that facade. It's just when I look at the layout of my floor plans,
Like one's a bed, yeah.
yeah, I
One could
mean,
be like a larger feature over those family rooms on the two ends, right? Those are family rooms on that end and on the other end, where you could, and then they don't have to repeat on the inner side, like on the, in the
it could be.
bedroom.
I mean,
Right,
I could
right?
show you that. I'm not convinced I want to go there, in terms of the actual rhythm of this facade against the street. I'm thinking of this, I'm honestly thinking of this more of an infill building than a feature building. In terms of the, like, sort of urban design principles of it. So, to me, a consistent rhythm is more appropriate, than trying
Well, what's
to.
adjacent to this? On one side, you've got Trader Joe's.
Yeah, the context is
And then
a
the other
little,
side,
the
you've got the
context is a little
tennis
crazy, yeah.
Place, so
It's
Yeah.
a feature.
it is a feature, because on either side, you don't have beautiful architecture going on.
Well, you don't. I mean,
So
I
you
would,
have an opportunity for this to be an architectural feature, which right now, because of the regularity of the facade and sort of, it being so equal, and so boxy, it's just,
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not-
I'm not averse to playing around a little bit with the fenestration patterns. I'm not convinced you're gonna like where that goes when I do it.
or maybe elongating it on one floor and maybe this other floor doesn't have,
To me, that makes sense. That makes sense to sort of,
Yeah.
because in our previous scheme, we actually graduated them.
That's right.
But I had 3 floors of building. In this case, I have 1 floor of parking, you know, on the bottom. So it's a little
So
trickier
maybe
to
the,
do.
maybe the second, not the parking level, but the first level of resi, you have a transom above the windows to give it a little bit more height. And then the one above that is what you have, just
Like a
to,
second-
just to sort of give some movement.
That's something we could do, but also like stylistically, I don't think we're on the wrong track here in terms of the trim package. Because I do want to distinguish this from everything that you're seeing up and down Route 7, you know, in Norwalk with these 4-story podium buildings and just a million big flat windows going across, and then here's an orange piece and here's a brown piece.
I
And
don't think
yeah,
we're not debating how you're treating the detailing of the windows or the
okay.
parking level. It's literally the box of windows being so regular makes the box much more obvious. That's what I said.
Okay.
And if you could vary the height of the window or the packaging of the windows, it would reduce the perception of this big box.
I'll take a look.
Dan,
No.
do you have any,
Yeah.
would shutters help? No?
Not necessarily, there's not a whole lot of room for them.
Because you have to keep in mind where we are.
If you want to speak, I'd love it, you have to introduce yourself.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
My name's Sean Shea, I'm the owner and the builder.
How do you spell your last name?
SHAY, built in town all over the place for 30 years. And you have to keep in mind where we are. We're right near the Trader Joe's garbage dumpsters. We're right near a shithole that's a little white house, right on the corner. We're across from what's probably gonna go bankrupt, Fuji Place. And in the back of that is this huge green tennis building. So anything that goes here is way better than what's there. We were knocked down by putting 12 units because of a ditch, a man-made ditch in front of the place, okay? I'm down to 8 units. The building that, the tennis court, wants to buy this to put a parking lot there. I can keep going back and forth with windows, you know, taller windows and stuff. I'm at my wit's end, and I appreciate all your efforts and everything else, but to come back and change windows and make them taller, I have an economic, I gotta make money on this thing, okay? I'm down to 8 units. I'm ready to just sell it and let it be a parking lot and I'm sorry, I'm frustrated, but to hear everybody say, change the windows, we went
Sean,
back
you
and
gotta do
forth.
what you gotta do, but we're gonna scrutinize
I
it just
understand,
because
I'm
it's
glad
what's
you're
there.
scrutinizing, I
But
just wanna
we-
let you know my position.
It just, we get this
because-
argument all the time. Have you seen what's there? This is better. Like that is the
10
worst
times
argument to
better.
make ARB because we're
Okay,
saying.
okay, let's say it's not
Right,
better.
start at the top.
Let's just say it's not better. You have to respect where I'm coming from.
Totally.
Okay,
And you
I
guys
know
have
where
done
you're
great
coming
detail.
from.
There's-
Let me just hear me out.
Okay.
I could sell it and it'll be a parking lot. I could just renovate the 2 crappy buildings that are there, okay? And that's where you are. So you're gonna have to work with me because I don't wanna come back 10 times.
We are working with you.
Yeah, we are.
I know, but I hear change the windows, make them taller. That's just
That's
more.
us
That's just-
working with you.
yeah.
But we're not.
That's what I'm
Doesn't
hearing.
seem like-
And I'm sorry I'm frustrated, but I just
That's just the
have
first
to.
comment too. We got a few more.
Oh, I know, I know you do, so just please go easy, because I'm borderline whether I even do this project and make it a part
He's
time.
very thoughtful, great.
What's that?
Is your issue time right now?
I've owned this thing for a year, and I was told at the very beginning from planning and zoning, we want the parking in the middle, because we don't want another building on stilts. So we put the parking in the middle. Then they say, okay, well, the EPC doesn't want it because of a ditch, a man-made ditch in front of the thing. Then they come back and they say, okay, you can put the building underneath. Well, I wasted a whole bunch of time with Wilder Gleason, him, and 3 different engineers and the landscape architect to come up with this plan. So thank you for your time, I really appreciate it, but you know, I don't mind making some changes and colors and stuff. I don't mind putting shutters on the front of it. I don't mind doing a lot of things. But to change the windows and make them taller, you have to think about what's inside too. It's an apartment, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, okay? So think about how it's gonna look from the inside as not only from the outside. And I apologize for me being
Well,
the way I
we collaborated very well
am. But that's the
before.
way I am.
We collaborated very well before. Most projects like this come through us, they see about 3 or 4 rounds. So I think we can get this in another round,
Okay?
but there is some
I
stuff.
don't know if
that
I
needs
got
work.
another round in me, but I
You gotta do what you gotta
appreciate it.
do, right?
And
What we
so
gotta
do
do,
you.
we gotta do.
But
So
thank
we'll-
you,
let's-
thank you.
Yes, appreciate, stay up here, it's great, your feedback is great. Grab a seat next to Kate. Let's keep talking. So I think we got somewhere at the windows, like adjusting the heights and what was the other word? The heights.
Add a transom or
Right,
something,
but they're
just to create some variety. We're not adding more square footage, we're not, we're not saying pull the building in and out, we're not saying get rid of the, the parking. All we're saying is that you got 2 big boxes, create some visual interest there. Just a little,
Give
just a
me a
little.
hint
Can
of
this
what
be a little
exactly that
less-
would be.
I-
Making the
take-
windows
okay.
taller?
Yeah, just
Just
a
like
smidge.
on the first
the
floor
bottom
and
floor.
the second
On
floor,
the
keep
first
the
floor, on
ones
the
that
first
are
Down, no.
like a
Just
typical
it's gotta
house.
be
masonry.
What do you think about that, Dan,
No, that's
making the bottom windows taller?
I'd have no issue with that. I have no issue with that. And I'm not averse to playing around with the fenestration. It's just, my sort of conclusion was, given the massing of this building, that a regular rhythm of the windows was the right thing to do, rather than try to arbitrarily punctuate the facade with the windows and end up with something that's sort of, why'd you do that?
I didn't think it was arbitrary when I saw the inside layout. I thought there was an opportunity based on the inside to do something more interesting on the outside fenestration. If you re-examine that and you're saying, okay, I'm gonna still keep the regular rhythm of the windows, but we'll just change the length of them, that's an argument to be made. But I feel like there is an opportunity to look at some of those where you've got like a massive, a bedroom versus,
I don't
just
disagree.
revisitation.
I don't disagree.
What
I disagree.
cottage style windows, or the one with the longer, lower sash?
Yeah, the top.
Rather than
Yes,
transom,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
from a cost standpoint, that's
Yeah,
very,
that's a good idea.
close to the,
Cottage
point where we are.
windows.
and that would get you that added length, again, just at that second level.
Right.
Yes, again, but remember now, this is the sill height of the windows right now.
Mhm.
So if I make them 6 inches taller, it's down here.
Go higher.
At, maybe,
Raise the headlight, yeah.
maybe. It's just, I kind of like my windows to line up with my doors, and then my doors go up inside and so forth, but
That's overrated.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Did you say that's overrated?
Yes.
Lining the window with the top of the door.
People are gonna put their
That's right.
window treatments, and you'll never see how they're all aligned anyway.
That's right.
as I say, I'm not averse to playing around with the windows. I have a personal bias to thinking that the regular rhythm of these is the right thing to do, but we could look.
Also on the elevator shaft, why did you put the elevator in the front versus the return? If we're talking about, because that window set that you're never gonna see, it's a bummer that's lost at the 2 ends of your building, 'cause that's a great feature.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Elevator shafts, right, so the elevators are, why are they at the front of the building versus flipping that around and maybe putting windows along the stairs, like featuring?
Because it allowed me to have this piece of glass facing the street and that solid wall facing away from the street. That was why.
Because it curves over there, so that window you're gonna see from the street.
But really, so if we go back to
You just see that box
the
you're putting-
streetscape
The
rendering,
street, we give a 15-foot tree there in front. for the elevator shaft.
right. But I honestly don't want to feel like I have to plant a tree in front of the building to make it work.
Right, I agree, that's the one, that's like, that means you're hiding your building, it's not
Yeah.
architecture.
But so if we flipped it around, then this feature, which creates a little recess that I can put a roof over the front door,
Nice,
goes
yeah.
away. And then the backside of that is solid, which would then be facing the street, so that's why I did it that way.
Liz, are you suggesting that the stair and the elevator turn?
I don't know, well, I'm just.
I think you'd still have the same situation. You'd have
Yes.
you'd have a sliver of glass, but you still have 2 solid things And this,
Yeah.
I actually think this is a better solution.
I'm just, it's bummed that those windows, you have the feature and the expense of those windows set on the ends where you won't ever really.
But if you flip.
Well, except that everyone who lives there enjoys them.
Yeah.
Right, everyone who lives there enjoys them, so they get to look at the little bit of green that's left on this site is what you see when you walk out of your unit every time.
I have one more comment, you're loving me tonight. The balconies on the inside,
Yeah,
I wish there was something a little more heavy, that they could maybe like the actual, like the Juliet balconies, I think how they came out a bit. Like if the railings weren't as recessed, they weren't recessed to the building, oh no, so those are great. You go to the inside parking lot,
these ones here,
Yeah, they get lost, and I feel like that could be more of a feature there, like with the balconies.
Actually, they don't bother me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is
I-
negative space to me, I think, actually,
Would you
yeah,
want them
it's
more?
an
I wanted
unfortunately,
to be pronounced, like
Yeah,
not flat with the building, to be
Yeah.
pronounced like the Juliet, like 6
Oh.
inches out.
The balcony.
The balcony railing, 6 inches out, like
Right.
to
So
get
it-
it.
I think right now it's set back though, right?
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
set back,
Yeah,
it's
we were
set back
saying
and it hits the
slab
fin
came
on
out.
the.
It's the opposite of railing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they kind of overlook and create kind of like a courtyard, intimate courtyard.
Speaking of courtyard, that was one comment that we
Yes.
I think
had
that's an
when we
option,
looked at.
I'm not discounting it. but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it's a strong enough argument to change it, one way or the other.
Right.
Okay.
So this is all asphalt,
Correct.
and you don't really have much of a choice here, right? And
No.
you have your, is this the dumpsters?
Right, and I do have another seemingly mundane constraint here, but underneath all of this are precast infiltrators. And the infiltrators have a required depth that they have to be above groundwater. Long story short, I don't have enough thickness to put pavers on top of the infiltrators. I have just enough for road base and asphalt. I have 8 inches from top of infiltrator to finished grade.
And these are 2 parking spaces here?
Those are 2 parking spaces,
Is it
correct.
visitor spaces type thing?
Visitor spaces, so I'm required to have 16 spaces, I have 18 total for the unit count, and we have a loading space, which we didn't have in the last scheme, so there's a place where this is slightly undersized by the town specs, but actually a loading space is not required for this, it's at the discretion of the P and Z. So we made one that's big enough to get a garbage truck or a moving truck in and out of there.
So you can't do any pavers. That's the bottom line, you can't put any sort of those interlocking type pavers on top of this because you don't have this.
I don't have enough road depth,
That's-
yeah, that was the reason, yeah.
Just flare
It
it
would've been nice, it would've looked nice.
I know.
It would've looked nice. In less what? Can the whole site go up 4 inches?
Or if you split it.
Pardon?
Can the whole site come up 4 inches? Sorry.
Something, it's
Slope up?
And if I had to come up, believe it or not, it actually makes a difference with the grading to the wetlands and when, I have the engineering drawings here, but when we're bending those contours close to this stream,
Yeah.
it's really tough. I mean, you know, maybe we could do a border somewhere, you know, squeeze a border in, because I've got the infiltrators, actually, that plan in my packet here, I can show you.
I think that ditch is the upper part of the Goodwise River.
No, it's not. It's not. That,
Or it actually is a tributary or something, but it's
no, it's a
like.
man-made ditch that, the part that runs to the Goodwise River is to the left of the condos.
On the other side?
On the other side. That's a man-made ditch that goes underneath the post road, and then it goes underneath the throughway. It doesn't go into the Goodwise River.
It floods so much. I mean, it's a flood zone.
It floods because nobody's cleaned out the ditch in 30 years. There's a tire underneath it.
I completely understand.
The grades are all blocked off, which I plan on cleaning out. But I'm not gonna do a damn thing until I get it moved. So it'll continue to flood
That's why I said
And if
that
I
should you
our
break out?
sell it as a parking lot, then
is to change.
it'll still flood.
Well, it looks like it could be.
So our proposal with PZ includes some checks changes to the DB zone under the inclusionary housing provisions.
Is there anything
So-
more?
And there was a setback.
Trellis or something like
In the
that.
rear yard.
Sorry,
Right, so the
we're
rear
brainstorming
wall
other
is-
ideas before.
And that's one of the
So we
things
should
we're
give them
asking.
proper
Yeah,
feedback.
but obviously you're not taking the
And
47.
then the balcony thing, like, I don't
This is a
think
change.
somebody driving by would ever see that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay,
I mean, personally, I think the
Yeah.
quality of the materials that you selected gives me confidence that this, will look like a high-quality product when it's done. I
Mhm.
do think some tweaks with the windows or
We're not averse to looking at all that. And we were just talking, perhaps a border or even curving would help us on that.
I think you need to consider a more modern window too. We're sitting here going back and forth about the style of the building. It's like traditional versus, it's just like you have traditional windows with this like contemporary egress on the
I
side.
find this actually to be a visual, like, relief from some of the stuff that we've seen, because some of the other things that have come through have been like so, not contrived, but like just so, like, let's change something here and change something
Like the
there, and like
Parklands.
another color, and this is just like a beautiful colonial-esque with a flat tooth, like a flat roof. -ish.
Well, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and the idea is to sort of
It's-
make reference to traditional New England stuff
It's a breath.
and have it be in context. And my only concern with
Something like that.
modernizing the detail around these windows is that, to your point, it's a flat building, and we're gonna make it flatter.
Well, I still like the trend, the detail you have in the windows, but maybe just a different, I don't know, I'm a little lost in this one, okay.
wiggle room with the height of your parapet walls.
Almost none.
It is
Um,
right. It's too big.
That much.
Yeah.
And how do you decorate to-
Yeah, because we are complying with the height requirement,
Yeah.
and
It is-
so.
Are you at the height requirement now?
got that much. So, yeah, so we're right there. Yeah, so, no, I mean, this is great and useful. I think we have a really valid approach and partie to the site, and I think we've addressed a lot of really challenging things from a technical level and from a, point of view about stuff that this board is not even interested in level, in terms of some of the other things, so.
I'm just trying to make sure it's worthwhile your time. I don't want you guys to come back here and us be like still sitting being like, like that's not my concern. I'm trying to make sure we give you guys, we've really thought this through, so like when we see you, we can see you again for the final time, if we see you. But,
So,
I don't know, I wanna make sure
send us
we
something in
get-
2 weeks digitally and.
Yeah.
do you wanna send us something at first pass before you go down the road too far?
Well, I would, in fairness, like maybe a little bit more concrete instruction on what we're looking at. I think, is it fair to say that we're talking about proportions of the windows, the
Yeah.
fenestration system?
Yeah.
That's
That's
specific.
the main issue?
I think that's the first one. Yeah, I think that's the main one, because it just, they're all so uniform, maybe, like we talked about the second floor, just the main floor of the living space,
Yeah.
being a little bit taller, keep the other ones.
What's the current, someone gave you actual size to rotate, like 5 feet, did you say?
5.5.
5 and a
Because right now
half?
they're 5, so you could do like 6 and then 5.5, or 5.5 and 5, just something a little bit, so it almost looks like
Yeah.
a regular colonial house that has, 9-foot ceilings on the first floor, 8 foot on the second floor. You always see a larger window on the first floor and smaller windows up top.
I'd probably recommend making the bathroom
Right,
windows
they have
smaller,
all
maybe a
this
bit
each
square.
row gets smaller and
Is
smaller
there
and smaller.
a little
Yeah.
That
too
is like
close in size?
Too close to the other ones?
to the other ones.
so.
And you have another window in the bathroom.
Like it just
Pardon?
gets better.
There's another window in the
It's
bathroom as well, that looks like,
Right.
And it would look
So
even
you have
better
two.
if it
Yeah.
were massive.
so you have 2 in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if this was
Yeah, because that
massive,
one's small one, so it could be much smaller.
big windows, and then-
Bathrooms are a lot nicer in this building than the last one.
Ron, Dan, sorry that. Dan, also, Hervé, we talked about this in the past, right? Or you're drawing something as well. I was like, Hervé, you have a sketch, you always have a sketch you're working on. You can always pull out something.
I can, not here now, but.
You can draw
I
something?
can draw something.
Alex is drawing
Like-
something
I
too,
just,
like,
I mean, really like dumb,
But-
just dumb sketch,
Yeah,
but
that's exactly.
all
what
I'm
we're talking
suggesting is on the, I just took that
Transom on
one.
the lower floor?
Yeah,
Just gives the extra height.
it just
yeah, the
helps,
interest.
it helps the
The scale.
And it, I mean, you have to look at it the entire
And
elevation.
eats up a little more of the wall, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I like
Worth a
the
look.
light in my
It's worth a look.
Can you break the cornice of that bathroom and create a secondary box instead of the main box?
Oh,
So
I
just
like that
have a
idea
little
too,
room in
yeah.
the middle.
Yeah,
Just kinda here.
The bathroom ones, if the bathroom one, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just talk about the
like
bathroom.
putting a notch in here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Smaller.
Also,
Can you-
should
can
you
you
carry the
use your
siding
fingers?
in where the bathroom is, should that be panels?
Could be something else.
I know, it's a parking lot.
But,
Yep.
so the answer to that is yes, provided that I don't compromise my screening of the equipment, which I think I
Yeah.
could do. I mean, from a practical point of view, no one's gonna see this equipment from the ground.
No.
You know, the angles are, the parapet could vary and you wouldn't see it. It's right now set to the exact height of the equipment, but.
Dave also had a suggestion, maybe even in that inset where the bathrooms are, to change, not the color perhaps, but the type of
Yeah, I was gonna go there.
siding, right? So there's a textural difference, right? So
Yeah.
that it's even more pronounced, the separation of the
Yeah,
right and left boxes.
yeah, I like that.
And I wouldn't change the color, but,
No.
but
Could just be
just the,
color.
Just the
just
siding,
the
you could
texture
go for
or the dimensions.
Yeah,
of the
actually, we had done something similar on the last building.
Right,
There was
Yeah, you
a,
did.
that's
there
right,
was a vertical,
that's right.
there was a vertical piece,
And I,
so.
and I think
That
that
could work
helped,
pretty
it
well.
Yeah.
helped break up the mass,
Break the box
yeah.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I like that.
Is that concrete
Yeah.
enough?
What do you think, Garen? Those are three
I
specific
think those are things we could work
suggestions.
on.
Okay,
I think those are things that we could work on,
okay.
for sure. And then maybe we could do a preliminary submittal in the middle, get a little
Yeah.
feedback
Yeah.
before the next hearing, so.
Yeah, and of course, Hervé also draws stuff. He has a good hand. He can draw some stuff, and you guys could play
No, it's
together.
good.
We need to, you can come to the town hall and maybe we actually do
Yeah.
like a little collaborative type thing.
Collaborative working meeting. Yeah.
Okay, those are, yeah,
So what are we talking about? We're talking about painting the indent a different color.
no,
No.
Because I'm lost,
He's
everybody's
got
got
it.
different.
That's fine, he's got it.
Tell me what.
same color, different material,
Where?
In the indent.
here.
And what kind of material are we talking about?
Maybe we go to
Different-
vertical
or
siding,
how-
maybe we go to flush board with no bevel, just something
Yeah,
to change the
right.
texture.
Okay, that's one. What's the other one?
The design of these windows, perhaps raising the height either with a transom or making them taller windows. The third suggestion I heard was if we scroll down here, maybe looking at breaking the continuity of that cornice line between the two. That's something we can look at. I'm not sure if that's gonna work or it's not gonna work, but
Anything else?
And that bathroom window in the middle, maybe a little bit smaller.
the scale of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for me to fiddle with scale of windows and
That's it.
so forth.
I think if you change the siding, the cornice might not be as important of an element to
Right,
change.
right.
Yeah.
One might negate the other.
Right.
Yeah.
You need both, that's correct.
Those are, I mean, I think that's all good input. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, even if you just, the cornice didn't go all the way around, and whatever siding you used, you could almost run that further up towards the top, so you wouldn't feel like you had this heavy cap all the way around.
Yeah, I still like the idea of a bottom, a middle, and a top. You know, in sort of the three layers vertically, so, you know, we can take a look at that, we can take a look at dropping that down, or breaking it, or leaving it. You know, things you could do. Okay, I think
Okay.
that's plenty.
Yeah, I think, and plantings.
I got a.
Okay, yeah, so we do have a full planning plan that was prepared by Matt Pop.
Yeah,
I've got a copy of it here, I can try to answer some questions. He's got another hearing tonight at Fairfield. If there's something specific you had for him, we could get him on the phone. But fire away and I'll do what I can with it.
yeah, so the, like the Old Kings Highway plantings those are all pretty small trees. I mean, and so my feedback to him was, I think, I'd like to have the biggest trees here, other than the green giants that are coming in as screening, is just, one, tupelo and then the, pin oak. And neither of those are in the front of the building, so I do think, to the extent that, I'm always pro tree canopy and, if we could get two larger trees towards the front. I do realize that you have electrical lines right there, so they, he's gonna have to be aware of that because Eversource has been
chopping the tops of our trees off in town everywhere. But just to kind of look at that to add a little bit more height, because the river birches and the hollies are gonna be pretty short, and they're not gonna, happy holly can get tall, but usually those happen in nature. They don't really happen if you plant them that way. And it takes a little while. So, and then I think my other feedback is his planting palette in here is actually, very, very, very native, and, has that, nice soft color with the river birches and the staggies and everything. But then he's got the hollies in there, and so I was gonna kind of ask him, is the holly just for evergreen? Because you have this very shiny, glossy, traditional plant next to something that's a very modern planting palette, and so I was gonna kind of ask him how he's thinking about that, if there's another evergreen that he would want to substitute, or if there's more shine that he'd want to push anywhere else. And the last one is he's calling for where'd it go? The leucothyli, and leucothyli can look pretty ratty in like 5 years. Like it's prone to funguses, and it doesn't look great. And maybe there's something that he maybe wants to look at.
To substitute in that plant?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it's like its height. It's the
Can I comment on that, Matt? I wanted some big trees in the front, and actually, I like big trees.
Yeah.
Somebody on the wetlands just said that we had pin oaks in the front,
Yeah.
or I think there were,
They were pin oaks.
Pin oaks.
Yeah.
And they said that they didn't want those big trees in the front because the root ball might go into the ditch that's in the front when it grows eventually, and they'll get too big. That's what they said. So we took them out.
Yeah, so I would like,
See how many people we're trying to make happy?
It sounds like I need to
if,
go
Put a talk about
with the wetlands. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
That's
true
surprising.
thing.
Yeah. I
You know
mean,
what else I was accused of? They wanted to make sure I had a fire truck, that the culvert could
Oh,
support
yeah.
a
Yeah, we
fire
heard that
truck,
last time.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I called up somebody that, my brother's a fire chief in Norwalk. He had the fire truck from Darien put on the culvert, took some pictures. They accused me of going on the website and putting in a fire truck in the webs, on the picture. I'm not that smart. It says Darien Fire. I mean, so this is the kind of stuff that frustrates me.
I
Put the
think
trees in, take them
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Put the fire
Yeah.
truck in.
So-
You put that in there yourself. Okay, that
Yeah.
fire truck wasn't real.
in fairness, landscape planting plans are a purview of the ARB, but then we have the wetlands here, and so we need to figure out what exactly is going on here. And it probably means that I actually have to have a nice meeting with wetlands and find out what the
yeah, there was,
who has, I don't know.
shot at
well, there were a lot of cross currents on a bunch of different
Okay.
things, and I will relay the comments to Matt if it's possible for minutes of this meeting.
Okay.
I got the hollies and the textures, and I got the
Yeah,
substitution of the species, but I'm probably gonna forget half of this. by the
yeah,
time I get
yeah,
home.
yes,
I'm
I
trying
know.
to take
I
as
get that.
copious notes as I can.
Yeah,
Well,
we
just
also
for
had a
clarification-
couple of issues with traffic consultants and sightlines relative to plantings and
Yes.
and placement.
Okay.
So that may have something to do with some of the selections. I know that we had pin oaks, and we were asked to remove the pin oaks by EPC before, and so anyway,
Yeah,
so we'll
yeah.
get to the bottom of all this.
Yeah, that's
I'll
fine
give
too.
you one more about a bush. The bushes around the house, okay?
Yeah.
Which are in the back of the house. One person said, this really blows my mind. When you're painting the building, the ladder's gonna get on the bush and kill the bush, right? When you're putting up the siding and stuff, right?
Okay.
Nobody puts bushes in until after it's done.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that I have to deal with.
People in Darien are insane, aren't they?
And 20 people, and half of them are here, are trying to design this thing, It's just
Yeah.
turning into,
Alright.
and I'm so close to just letting them buy it and put a parking lot.
Yeah.
And then, there you go. So anyhow,
I
I'm
understand.
sorry, but, you know, you want the trees, he doesn't want the trees. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Maybe if we strategically find where there's one place you can put the tree that won't interfere, maybe, you know, if we have a meeting with them and we can help this
Yeah.
along.
Forget it, don't have a meeting with him.
I'll,
Look, it's
well,
not-
if you guys can get the notes from that meeting about this, maybe we can connect Matt and Anya and I could,
Yeah.
No, that's
Sure.
okay,
Connect, okay,
that's
and just-
okay, don't
fine
rock
with
the
you.
boat, it'll just make it worse for me,
Okay,
really.
all right.
I'll put the pinnocks back.
No, it's about, well, we could,
And that,
It's
no,
important.
please, no, really, thank you, but
Okay, so I've got some marching orders, and what I would like to do, if it's acceptable, is try to get back to you within
Let's
2 weeks with
hold them up and
a revised digital submission for, and
Yeah, why don't
hopefully
you
you
revise
can give me
some-
some
yeah.
comments outside the hearing, and then, you know.
Yeah,
the
let's
ball will
Hervé,
get
Hervé will be able to
activated.
take a look at it, we can't like have a group quorum, but Hervé
Right.
can look at it and see if we're on the right track. He'll
Yeah.
know, he'll have an idea, and then we'll, so we don't waste your time, you know,
Yeah.
like doing renditions.
Good.
And hopefully we'll see you at our May meeting to keep things going.
That would be, sounds like a
don't
plan.
forget your rock.
Yeah.
taking the rock and the
Taking
Yes,
rolling.
right.
It's nice,
We're
it's
May,
really nice,
we're May
you know,
20th.
it looks really
May 20th, that's the
Right.
next meeting.
And what is it, what are we?
Thank you, and I'm sorry for my outburst, but
You know, our
I just can't help it.
We can say
I'll have that.
Okay, thank you very much.
I did too.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Just your last comment about species that was prone to.
Yes, so
Leucothoe.
that is the leucothoe weed.
Okay.
It's the Leucothoe. It is prone to looking not great in about 3 to 5 years. Rat.
Alright.
Yeah, it's a,
And then you also had said, it's taking up the, something, another tall tree to replace the hollies and river bridges, to go alongside the holly river bridge. What?
Just
Yeah,
want to
if
show,
there's another
show
op-
people.
Oh.
Is there, yeah, I think you said for the holly trees, if there's another option for evergreen that's not as shiny.
yes, oh, so that was the hollies.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then,
got
asking for height, right, was the trees in the front are a little
Mhm.
low.
That's great. So you put these comments up on the website so I can get to them?
Yes,
Yeah, it's
Great.
gonna-
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
yeah. Kevin, you can help out, we, 2 more sign applications, ARB number 16, 2025 is our next one, for,
I said, I thought you fell asleep back there.
at 325 Heights Road.
Yes,
This is Pivo? Okay.
It is people.
Oh, Pivo, hello. I'm Kevin, owner of Hungwell Signs, and tonight we're going to talk about Evolve, fitness place going on in Heights Crossing. Originally, we proposed a light box with push-through letters, but the client would have been here, but she's in Chicago training, so.
This is much
We think
better.
individual letters might look nicer on this instead of a box.
Yeah,
So, I gave a version of black as well, but I think white might be the way to go. Everything's to scale. So I just put it up there just to show you what it would look like.
What's the?
What's the difference
The
here?
yellow line, which one is that, Hervé?
I'm trying to find out the difference between this sheet, this page, and this page.
Nothing, I just put the lettering,
just has
the
dimensions.
Oh,
size.
the dimensions, okay, so
I
that's the
put the
same.
yellow dots, just that's their actual size there, that's where their actual space is.
okay.
They're actually splitting the window with the, I guess Chipotle next door.
That'd be a fun sign.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
just- it's kinda
Half a
weird.
sign.
Your face.
I'm sorry. There's like a Chipotle on every corner of
I
New
know.
York City.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we also, there's also the entrance on the inside. I know I put a lot of pictures up there. I thought maybe a light box might work, the push-through might work well over the entrance, which is on the inside of the,
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
there's also drawings that I've submitted prior to this that have individual letters, but I think maybe a push-through might work well.
That was the one. What's that? What's this drawing about?
That goes with the individual letters. This is just this is P-Vol's spec sheet
Ah, okay, that's
on
their
what
spec sheet.
they accept
I got it.
as far
Yeah,
as.
because they had all these different type of bracket ranges of size.
Yeah,
and we were
that's-
like,
yeah, they're
this
pretty
one's loud,
technical.
but that one is not, you know, like 30-inch
Exactly.
letter, no.
We do the first one, 15-inch tall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
What's the height of the Goddard School letters?
Ooh, 18? That's a tough question
I
here.
thought they were like 12.
Out of memory.
You can see it from the train, I saw it today. They have the sign up.
I just think it would be
16
interesting
or
if the P-Vol was approximate. I think the Goddard letters look nice, so I kind of thought
you
it
think
would
we're
look nice
But
if it
they're
was
not-
approximately the same size.
Yeah, but they're,
Yeah,
the
it's
building
like-
is,
Yeah.
It's longer, they have their logo.
there's a
that's
there's a
part of
big
it.
gap between the two.
All right.
This is a stucco,
Yeah,
yeah. This is a stucco. I'm gonna
that's the,
say,
that's the tunnel
that's what
color.
I'm saying.
You've probably seen it driving by.
Yes, I have seen it driving by. I was
Yeah.
surprised. I was like, really? I think so.
Yeah, so what's the material of the letters on the, on those, that material?
Aluminum.
Okay, aluminum,
yeah.
okay.
So it
It'll
won't,
be-
it
it'll be
won't,
ha-
it
it'll
won't
be halo lit.
create any, it won't create any little beautiful, you know, waterfall effect after a few years of dirt and acid and
Oh,
like
the way-
underneath.
Onto the
Underneath this-
ethos?
on the
Of course
stucco.
it will.
I mean, can we avoid that? I
Well,
mean,
you've seen some letters that are flush against the building do
I
that.
don't know how you can avoid it, it is the issue of.
I think it's worse with the stucco than anything else. Can you
How you
float?
avoid it is you maintain it.
Well, they'll be, they're halo lit, so that they're
Are
spaced
they
out.
floating out? at
They're
all?
floating out, so they'll be,
Oh, so they're
an
not
inch off the
completely
building.
like stuck to
and
the
this
building.
paint doesn't run, this is Matthews, this is,
It's a good
this
paint.
is not like,
Okay.
yeah,
So these are
There's no issue
aluminum
there.
letters, box halo lit.
yeah, just your typical
Yep.
dimensional letters, halo lit.
Alright, so this is the
These
next one
ones.
inside.
But then.
Do you like the push through idea, or do you like individual letters back there?
I like individual letters.
Yeah,
Here,
they're in, it's in here as well, an earlier submission, if you wanted to look at it, but I could resubmit
I would
it
do
too.
the individual letters. I would be
Okay.
consistent when you're doing on the street facade and.
Okay.
And you have a blade sign.
And I remember last time we talked when John was in here, John Vaccaro, about the monument sign, we talked about blade
Yeah.
signs for the,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that, I like the blade sign, makes it more intimate,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good, that's good.
I think like you said, everyone's gonna try to get a blade sign in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're gonna need it.
yeah.
Is that a side entrance? Is there a plan?
That's actually
where
the,
that is?
that's actually the main entrance. So as you pull into basically the Palmer's parking lot there,
And you
you take that
can't
left.
come in here, you go around.
Yeah, you go around on the right side and take a right.
Yeah. Wait,
That's,
so is, are you proposing this being lit, this one?
yeah,
So what was it being lit with? I missed that.
that's a halo lit sign, just.
This here?
Yeah.
3D, yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So each letter's gonna glow.
Oh, sorry, did I not get that in there? Yeah, halo lit letters. I thought I had it in the detail. Yeah, just dimensional letters.
Yeah, so yeah, so this is not cute, Kevin, this is going back, I have a struggle with this, and we're gonna, like, the building already is such lacking dimension and detail, I mean, this is an opportunity to go back to the gooseneck or something traditional, if we're lighting it all. And this is a
I would almost not light it.
Goddard's
I
not
mean,
lit.
No, not this unlit.
Goddard's unlit,
Yeah.
And if it's not the
Yeah.
main entrance, does it need to really be lit?
I like the main entrance.
No.
so I'm gonna lit here and just lit the main entrance.
I'm not
I
sure
don't
if there's
think you need to
lighting.
light the main entrance.
What?
I don't think you even need to light it, unless there is no lighting. above the
I'm
doors.
curious about that too. There must be some street lighting, I'm not sure how they're gonna handle that.
You're right, there is gonna be streetlights here, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't notice any street lights.
Who requested that the letters be lit?
Back to the building.
They did?
No, we
Oh.
did, just what I did. We went away from the push, we originally were gonna propose the typical box push-through letters,
Yeah.
with that being illuminated.
But can we just do pin mount
Yeah, so I thought they
letters?
were non-lit, pin-mounted letters.
Yes.
And then the main entrances are lit, or they're pushed through.
They're pushed through, those are,
We could light the entrance sign?
yeah,
the left.
yeah.
I like that better.
Okay, so just pin-mounted letters here,
Okay.
nothing lit.
Should we make them
Pin-mounted.
lit and not light them? Just in case in the future you're like, let's light them.
Are they gonna get accidentally lit?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm curious on how, they must be lighting that street somehow, right? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
we've seen it. Maybe there's lights coming out from the bottom.
So we can do dimensional letters, maybe like a 2-inch dimensional flush against the building maybe?
I'll never let it go.
You know they're using glow-in-the-dark paint?
Not funny. I'm laughing, but I'm so upset. Okay, so not illuminated here, pin loud, the size and stuff is great here, location.
With dimension, we'll have like.
With
maybe-
dimension, yeah.
Yeah, right,
Like that.
I think it'll
And
look
then-
nice.
Going back to the sign above the door, I thought someone said those would also be pin mounted, but now we're going back to lighting those that are, this was a halo box.
And there has to be.
And we
some
said
lighting.
we like the individual letters, but, I don't know, there's something about the black and the white letters that's bothering me.
Yeah.
That's their look.
It's
That's
like an eye
their-
test.
There's no.
Oh, yeah, it is like an eye test.
It is.
Peeved.
Kevin, that picture, is that gonna be a light bar
It's
left of the door?
It's usually it's white on black.
Does that look like an electric
It's
box?
black letters
Oh,
on white.
top of
It's
it.
very scarce.
Right there?
I'm not sure I've saw that.
Oh,
yeah,
it's a different font than everything else.
Also, the ceiling in there is, I mean, since that's
That'll be lit
covered, there's
too.
probably gonna be some.
It's hard to tell if it's like tape or.
Just thinking like in the ceiling, maybe they could just go light and glow it.
This is like a 10-inch tall box too, so it's 10 by 54. It's small.
So are we saying these are halo lit, not lit? What are we saying?
Because we're gonna propose the.
I don't want any of this stuff, I think this, that they have stuff all over the site, I feel like this site should be a non-illuminated site.
You think as well?
And since the Vaqueros haven't put together a plan, I think it's this is the whole point of us creating and deciding it now, because
Yeah,
they're
I'd
Maybe
say
they
just.
nothing
mounted-
lit.
Nothing.
Mounted, and
Mounted,
you can
pin mounted letters over the door.
And they're gonna have lighting, I'm sure, in that ceiling.
I would think they would have
Yeah, I
unlit
was
lighting
gonna say,
all along,
there's an opportunity right there for wall wash,
Or
right?
like you
Exactly,
said,
Yeah, right.
that's what they could do.
Right.
So if
That would be
there's,
really nice.
They can coordinate that.
instead of the sign being lit,
Yeah.
I would absolutely do like some sort
Just
of wall
wash
wash.
the wall.
So pin mounted, not with the border, not the black.
I'm not liking the black.
No, no blur.
Do you wanna go with the white or black
White.
letters?
The white
White letters.
letters.
Individual, dimensional,
Yeah.
like the front,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Do you
Okay.
think, okay, we'll wait to
Just
the
send me a
heights.
PDF and
Yeah.
we'll work on that.
Okay.
And we
The
like
blade sign is fine.
Yeah.
Move on.
Blade is okay.
If you-
But the blade sign,
I haven't had dinner yet.
but the blade sign, that's not the location, you're just emphasizing.
I put it there, it's, if you guys suggest maybe, the only other problem is how deep this, the molding is to the left of the door. That's their space right there, it doesn't go beyond that door on the right. So there's no real options really to put it, unless, if you put it here, obviously.
Yeah, closer to the door.
Closer to the door.
But on the
You
right
wanna
side.
get it, yeah, you
On
wanna
the
get
right
it
side of
closer to
the
the
door,
door?
yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Do you like that right side, I'll just put it closer.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Has there been like a lighting package for this whole development, or?
There's a site development light package that we can recall now, it was approved a long time ago, but there's
but no
no,
architectural lighting.
no,
No.
no.
We didn't
No,
see
like
it.
sconces.
I don't remember seeing that.
No, there
Yeah.
are lights on the building, though,
Architectural lights on the building?
like exterior.
Yeah, they have like some
doors.
carriage lights we approved at one
Oh,
point, I remember that with the
They're
parking
not, they're not.
and stuff on the site, but nothing that pertains to the individual
If
tenants.
you drive by,
Yeah.
take a look at like some.
Yeah, nothing but, I'm sure there's gotta be lighting underneath this,
Yeah.
up in
Passage,
there,
yeah.
yeah.
If there's trouble with lighting there, do we come back and say maybe there's an option?
Well, we're gonna say no lighting, if there's a problem with that, then you
They're
can
gonna have
come
to put some
back.
lights in.
They'll have to do their own
They'll have to
lighting,
do
I
it.
got it, okay.
And they'll have to come back and
Alright.
approve.
Okay,
Okay,
I can do that. And then
thanks, Kevin.
the heights.
Okay, so, you know what, so this is like, would be an administrative approval certificate, because there's so many changes to it.
Okay,
Let's clear it out and do one final file that shows everything,
Okay.
and then I'll have Hervé, is that okay, do an administrative approval
Sure.
certificate?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
shows
yeah.
pin mounted, both signs, pin mounted,
white.
Yeah, yeah.
white
Dimensional
letters, dimensional
not
letters,
Unlimited,
not illuminated, yep, but the blade sign as is, but closer to the
closer
door.
to the door.
Okay, great. So administrative approval certificate, okay.
Okay.
And then last thing, sorry, I know we're tired, it's 8:30.
Yep.
ARB number 17, 2025 is also, it's 360 Heights Road for
Right.
Heights Wine and Spirits.
Right. So you got Kevin with Commonwealth Signs.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us.
I don't know what that's for the TV or not, I'm not sure.
Yes, that's great.
Um,
Somehow my agenda.
So this is just another issue, not issue, but this is, I'm proposing another push-through light box for
Okay.
the liquor store. They want it, so we'll tell them.
And mount the letters,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
no lights.
Sorry, I'm pulling it up. Thanks, Hervé.
That's okay, just it had gone away.
I also included one quick, if you have a quick second after this one.
Okay.
All right, this is what they're,
Oh, yeah,
this is
no.
what they're hoping.
Oh, it doesn't have the
Okay.
bottle anymore. Good.
No.
See the creative H?
Yeah, that's better than the bottle that looked like it was hard to read an H.
Yeah.
But, and then
This is their
little H
logo.
here too, which is pretty.
Is that their official name, Heights Wine and Spirits?
Yeah.
Go back to where it looks on
Do you want to keep it at, you said earlier, 35 for the illumination?
the, way too much.
I threw 5,000 again, but I remember you mentioned last time it's too much.
I think it's getting to be too much. I don't know that, maybe.
I thought we were
it's
saying
gonna be-
non-illuminated.
But we're not
Well,
doing.
no, it's just in the future, so. I'll
Yeah, in the
keep putting
future,
5,000.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a balancing act, and we need to find out what the balancing act is between Kelvin and lumen. So if you're at a certain lumen, then we want, 3,500, but if your lumen's much, not as bright, then I'm okay going up to 5,000, right?
I think,
But there's,
yeah.
I think a good example is, in the federal realty, it's supposed to be, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 throughout, or 3,000 throughout?
3,000.
3,000 throughout in federal realty. Drive through there and look at all the different colors that 3,000 Kelvin is, apparently. It's,
I didn't realize that could be such a variety.
I don't know what's
Colors.
going, I don't know if it's, they're not following spec, or if it's different companies coming in,
Still.
or maybe they're all editable, and when they're being installed, they didn't set it correct.
Yeah.
Magnolia, I mean, is purple, and I'm not entirely sure how that, how
I know,
that's,
yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
That's kind of,
So I think, yes,
keep it under 5,000.
light, nuanced, if you're looking for bright, then it's gotta be really, really warm. If you're looking for, if it's gonna be a very, very low lumen, then I'm okay pushing it up to 5,000, always under 5,000.
Okay.
Where do you put that? Where do you put into the plan?
Yes.
Email to me.
Should I propose taking this white box away and just?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but the worry about this, if it's pin letters, I don't know how you're gonna do wines and spirits with pin letters. Can that be?
Can wine and spirits go on
You
the
can.
door in a claim?
You can, I think I have it down here, I think
It's just
they're,
heights of the-
I think they're tall enough, obviously, to get, I can mount them.
What about the
17.
seeds
I don't know how
inside?
great it'll look, but
What about the seeds inside the grapes? Are they pin mounted?
Yeah, that's funny.
So, but
Wait, but this
the
is-
material that's going on there, that's going on like a shingle type siding, though, is that
Yeah.
gonna?
it's kind of weird because, how shingles are, you can't lay it flat because the shingles are.
I don't know what it is about
I
it
don't
though.
know.
I wonder if it's just because it's a lot of words.
You want to paint the backboard
It's
something else?
also-
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Maybe.
can you paint the backboard the gray?
Yeah, like I've done in the other
Maybe,
stores.
that would-
yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay, the height, the size too is pretty big. Why is it 17 inches? Because the P-bulb in the front of the road is only 15 inches. So 17 seems pretty big letters here, no?
Kevin,
Is it- what
can
do I
they
have down?
route,
Letters aren't set.
can the
Yeah.
letters be routed, like not
I have 12
actually?
inch.
The back.
I'm sorry, what?
Can the,
15.
not only can you make it gray, but could you look into making the letters routed so that they're like recessed versus coming out?
Oh, what if they were?
Yeah, 13 inches.
What if they were?
Recess,
what
take
if-
the board,
13 inches.
recess the letters.
Yeah.
One more time, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they're
Like a
routed,
drip-
like more like a
smaller
clapboard
No, not
size.
driftwood.
Oh,
like
Inward.
Inward, yeah.
routed.
I
Just
think
flat,
that's
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
V
yeah.
cut, just a regular flat.
So that it gives it more like that traditional look.
I think that would look really.
Yeah.
Like
So
a
it's-
recessed carve, not a V carve,
Yeah.
just a flat
Yeah.
90 degree.
That's a great idea.
Mm.
As
Yeah, we
opposed to
could do
push through, I think that would look really nice.
Much more traditional.
So then the box would be like 2 inches deep and then the letters are separated.
I could charge
Is
you
this
more
still
money.
lit or not lit?
It's on a.
Not
yeah.
lit.
Not lit, right?
Not wood,
Not
not
lit.
still?
So inscribed,
Yeah, not lit, right, you know lit.
Wait, where is this located again?
So
So
look like-
this is looking at Palmer's, you come out of Palmer's, you're gonna look right at it.
Okay.
It's on the right
Look like more
side.
like a traditional
Right side of the
clapboard
building.
sign.
So what do you suggest, explain the-
Just more like a traditional clapboard sign where you route out the letters, where
Like
they
it's
be
carved,
in.
it looks
Okay.
carved out.
Not a V carve, but like a 90.
I
Okay.
think,
I think they're 12. Herbert, can you
And
confirm?
then Kevin with the same matching gray background.
I've
Right.
heard 12
Yeah.
Same background as the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says 12 and a half.
Okay,
And hopefully that burgundy a little bit deeper.
I'll find it every, that was,
yeah.
yeah,
they were 13
yes,
before.
more burgundy.
That's just
Yeah,
the
this is
screen.
a little,
that was
Yeah, he didn't give me
more
any
reddish.
specs on the color,
Could
but
be the
it's
screen.
burgundy. but
Could be the screen.
Yeah, just a little bit more
Go a little darker, so a little more contrast.
Blade sign, would we want it to be? a
Traditional-
gray-
think traditional.
gray background?
More Merlot.
Yeah, Merlot.
Yeah, blade signs mean the same style, the blade sign.
Like
Kevin,
an
you-
87.
Did you hear they're saying too, the same style for the blade sign, doing the
Carved
carved
out.
other recessed? That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
You could do that.
yeah. Is that a big change for them?
He's not, no,
Okay.
he's not sold on the, he's not sure whether he wants a blade sign, but I'm gonna tell him he needs one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
definitely.
I got kids in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
Consistency is king.
But yeah, it is good, good consistency is good here. for
Right,
this.
I think everyone
I'd like to
needs
see
a
everyone
blade
do the
sign.
blade sign, yeah.
Yep.
I think everyone, it doesn't hurt to have one.
You could also do something really cute, like if you made it more traditional, you could also do something really cool where like the grapes like in gold gilt or something like that, like make it more,
That would be cool.
That's cute.
That would be really cool.
make it seem like it's more like that traditional blade sign.
You should work with Unwell Signs.
I worked in
You got
that.
any free time?
Next career.
That's a good idea too. I'm sure he'd be
And
open
then
to
there's
that.
a guy outside dressed as a big wine bottle and he's pouring out free wine walking by, or said that.
Do that.
Nice.
Looks like a pretty big
Wait,
space.
so is the color of the sign, the wall sign is gonna be painted to match, or are you gonna make that
I think
white?
that's what
Yes,
we're
yes,
leaning
that's what
towards,
we're
right? Yeah,
talking
so
about. Okay.
it's not so shocking, yeah.
And then is this sign staying white, or is this
I think I could
No,
make
paint
it,
that one too.
paint this one too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
paint this one too? Okay, so they all
Yeah.
match, okay. Okay,
The one thing I added, because that, after the monument sign that we talked about for Cara,
Mhm.
I threw in, I designed like a rectangle sign for him that he liked.
okay.
So I don't know whether you have a second to look at it and say if that's a good direction to go, or,
Yeah, let's wrap up the meeting and then we'll,
okay. It's
okay.
just a quick drawing,
Okay.
Yep.
So this is, it will be an administrative approval as well.
okay,
All the changes to Airbay, we'll take the notes, we'll put them in, into Viewpoint,
okay,
and there's a lot that came at you right there.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay.
all right. Yeah, we can review them together, or
Right,
yeah,
right.
Dave and I will put them together and
Sorry,
get a
yeah.
Viewpoint for you.
Okay.
And then Airbay administrative approval. Okay,
And it's like something, the last number is 40 for the Vaccaro one, the monument sign, if you want to clock out.
oh, okay, well, we're gonna wrap the meeting, so
Oh,
that
you
said,
wrapped it.
yes, I
Okay,
need to wrap the
wrap,
meeting.
Okay.
All right, so, old business, I just need to approve the minutes, March, minutes done by, was it you, Kate, or you? By Kate. I took a look at them, they look great, all in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Okay, so minutes are approved, and we are not gonna go over any other business, I will not allow that vote to come through, because it's 8:38 PM, so we are gonna adjourn the meeting. Okay? All right, Channel 79, let us know when we're all done.
Going back in, Herman?
No, yeah.